We're gonna open the selectmen's meeting on June 14th, 2012. And I'm not gonna read the virtual meeting. Everybody knows what it's all about. I need a motion to approve Treasury warrant 21 and 25.
Whitman makes a motion to approve Treasury warrant 21 W25. Do you want and payroll both, or do you want?
No, we'll do one at a time.
Benoit
Second.
seconds.
Roll call vote.
Benoit,
Boucher.
aye.
Whitman, aye.
Nichols eye, excluding any COA wages, expenses.
Bruschetti.
Aye.
Motion to approve payroll 21 PW 25.
Whitman makes a motion to approve payroll 21-PW25.
Rossetti second.
Roll call vote. Bruschetti.
Aye.
Benoit, aye.
Whitman, aye.
Nichols eye, excluding
Clark,
COA
aye.
wages.
Unanimous. Approval of minutes of June 1st, 2012, 2021, I mean.
Whitman makes a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the June 1st, 2021 meeting.
Second.
Roll call vote. Bruschetti.
Aye.
Benoit, aye.
Whitman, aye.
Nichols eye.
Clock eye. We're going down to decision, the new Dominion picture film permits. Can you tell us about that, Ron?
Yeah, I will start it, and Carrie, I believe you're here from Dominion as well, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So we've been asked by Dominion to give them permission to do some filming in the town of Rutland. It's very minor in nature. We discovered in my office that moving forward this, there was a required permit process for doing any kind of filming in town. She's talking about a crew, I believe, of 2 people doing it for a couple of days. It has to do with a show that they call A Haunting. I'm recommending no fee for this since it's so tiny. She's already started the paperwork on this process. You can't take action tonight, but there's no requirement to take action tonight. I'm told that this could be about 2 months before the people that own the property are gonna be able to be involved in this. With that, if it's okay through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to turn it over to Carrie for a few comments. Carrie, if you'd like to make a few comments about it now.
Was that for me?
Yeah.
Thanks for having me here. And, if you guys have any questions, but basically, we've been producing this series on the Discovery Channel or various different Discovery Channel networks for 11 seasons, actually far longer than 11 years, because we've had some breaks, but basically it's a long-standing, very well-loved show that we interview people who have had paranormal experiences. So it's what we call a docudrama, and that we have our documentary part where we go and we interview people who said they've had these experiences, and then we come back to our local studio in Virginia and recreate the events that they said happened. So what we would do in your town is basically, and we had a bunch of things in place that we just are on hold right now until everybody's ready to do it again. It probably will happen in a couple of months. But we normally rent someplace like an Airbnb where the person who owns it has given us permission to film in there. We sit people down one by one and just have them tell us their story. And then we go around town, we try and get what we call B-roll, which is just streets and trees or rolling fields, and we kind of try to make them look a little empty, a little spooky, like, when we've talked with the people in regards to shooting at Rutland Prison. I know that that's open to the public, but we'll sort of catch bits and pieces without people in it because, just sort of to make it very atmospheric and eerie. So like you had mentioned, it's 2 people, maybe 3, but really it's probably 2 people, walking around with a camera, a tripod, kind of very, very simple, very low, very little footprint.
If I can, through the chair, Skip, if it's all right.
Sure, go right ahead.
First, for everybody watching, I'm the chair, so I want to give some background because I've been working with this for the last couple of weeks, and I apologize for being remote. I'm just away today. So just as a little bit of background, if you recall, the board recalls, we were going to have an emergency meeting about this last week just to get this okayed, because filming was originally supposed to be this week. When we were contacted about filming, it turns out that in 2016, the board has adopted a policy for a film permit, which is the only reason why we're going through this process. Nobody really knew much about it. There wasn't much on the books with it, and a fee hadn't been set. And I think the filming had changed, which is why we put this on the agenda for discussion tonight. So we will, once everything's in, it's my understanding, have to just give it the okay. I did talk to the individual, Karen, who's on the phone now, or on the call, about if she needs any police detail, reach out to the police department. If she needs any access to DCR property, reach out to the police department. So I know that her crew had already reached out to Nick and kind of worked everything out. It doesn't seem that there's any needs there for that. So I just want to anticipate any questions the board might have, but just know that I think everyone's done their due diligence on it in terms of the back end and the town end and any town resources that might need to be expended for this kind of to take place. So that's the background. So thank you for allowing me that.
I have a question.
Generally, we don't really call for any kind of city assistance at all. I mean, we don't block streets. We just like to kind of go, hey, we're coming, make sure that see if anybody has a process, but and then either get something in written, and so many towns don't have anything, and I'll end up talking with either a tourism board or a sheriff's department, and just having them, having us email back and forth and having them send me something that says, yes, we know you're coming, so that if anybody stops one of our guys and says, what are you doing? They're like, well, we're shooting for New Dominion and here's a letter. So that kind of happens a lot for us.
Yeah.
If I may, can I just suggest that we alert the historical commission? Also, I see that some of the potential areas for filming might include the cemetery here, and just as a courtesy kind of heads up to them, I know that they were maybe looking at doing some sort of work in there at some point to do some rehab, so I just want to make sure that everything is,
Will be taken care of.
thank you, yeah. But other than that, I'm fine with it. I think it's a fun project, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to see it and have it come together.
Excellent.
So does the board want to approve this tonight so we don't have to bring it back up at a later date and get it done and over with?
So let me, if I could make a comment. Just, they've already turned in $1 million coverage, the insurance policy coverage. So we already have that on file. They filled out most of the form. As I said, if this was, I was actually kind of happy this was in place, the film process, because if you did have a bigger production, you would need a lot of things like this in here. The fee would be structured to recoup costs like private duty and other things. Here it's so small in nature, I think the form is almost overkill. But it was good it was on the books and we could check it out, but I guess at this point, I see it as minor, and I would encourage the board to approve it tonight, but if you want, there's no hurry, so we can postpone that if the board chooses, and wait till everything is dotted up, but for the most part, I don't see any problem with this whatsoever.
I'll go ahead and make a motion through the chair, if I could, to approve and sign the film permit for New Dominion pending receipt of all requested materials. That way we don't have to revisit this at a later date, and they have the satisfaction knowing that they're all set.
Whitman will second that.
Roll call vote. Bruschetti?
Aye.
Benoit, aye.
Whitman, aye.
Nichols, eye.
Clock eye, unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch. Beth will be working with you, Carrie, to finish up the process, okay?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. Looking forward to seeing your town when we reschedule.
All right.
Is there anything else you need from me?
Not right now, thank you.
Okay, thank you. You guys have a great night.
You too. Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Next on the agenda is the department head updates.
Just through
Oh, wait a
the
minute.
board. Open comment, were we gonna do that tonight? If there was any, I don't know if there's anybody on that had, usually that's the first thing.
That's it, 104.
Public comment.
Oh, I missed it, sorry. Anybody here for public comment? I see nobody. So if there is something before the meeting's over, well, I should say I lost your time. No. We're gonna move on to department updates and town administrators update.
Okay, we don't have any department heads here tonight, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of issues, I think we all feel thankful that we've through the town meeting now, and the budget outcome as a result of that will be whatever happens after the referendum vote, but the budget is in place one way or another, how we go forward. I'm very pleased that regardless of the outcome of the override vote, I believe that the Finance Committee and I have put together a budget that puts us in a better financial position. Worst case scenario is we use $100,000 in free cash versus significantly more in the past. So I think our financial situation is better. We still obviously, if the override doesn't pass, have the concerns about what cuts were going to be made that were all outlined. I do want to say that, you know, the some of those cuts are things that I think we really love as a community. Things like making sure that a private duty police officer, when the town has a nice event in town, making sure that those things are available is a concern. And snow and ice, and making sure we have plows and people, and the reduction to the services at DPW by moving a couple of people out of the department into the enterprise fund. But overall, no matter what happens, I feel better that we're in a stronger position. We have a balanced budget either way, so I think that is really good. Been talking with the board, and as you know, I received I think it was $40,000 grant to do a facilities management study. I received a draft copy of that study now, and my department heads who have buildings are going through that to make sure that nothing is missed. But very shortly, you will be receiving the final copy for that. All I can say to you is that my department heads are very impressed with the work product, very happy. It really helps them in a lot of ways. One, it identifies those facility issues that have been kind of in their scope, and they've been looking at it, but they don't know how to get estimates for costs and things like that, and they're not experts in any area of government. This gives you kind of a broad overview of all the buildings in town, really outlines the things that those buildings needs in terms of repairs, and also gives estimates, which now the department heads don't have to worry about, but it lets them now go to the capital improvement committee and make a case. They have a professional firm that has looked at it and evaluated it. I want to make it clear tonight, though, because it's really important. Often people think that that's like an engineering study of the building. It's not. It's a high-level study of the building. It's to show you the problems and stuff, but it's not like they had an engineer come in and figure out what's wrong with the HVAC system or anything like that. But I think you'll be impressed with the report. It looks really good so far. And, you know, there's been a couple of department heads that made some small comments for changes, but overall, I don't think there's been a lot of changes to it. So that, I think, is good news. The obvious problem to that is we're eventually going to incorporate that into the capital management plan that I've done, or the capital improvement plan that we did for 5 years. Now that takes the facilities and adds that to it, which strengthens that report significantly. So I think overall we'll have a good capital improvement program. Now the downside is you have to have money to fund the program, and that's where we have to look at after we get this done. How do we move forward in the town in terms of taking care of our long-term assets? Because those assets are extremely valuable, and truthfully, for years, people have built up those assets, and we don't want to just keep draining them by letting them wear down. So I think that's a huge thing.
I have a question
Sure.
about that part if you're finished.
Sure, no, I'm going to go into other things, so that part, done with that part, yep.
Is that okay if I go? Did that look at current space needs as well as future space needs, or did it simply look at the current physical structures as they are?
In some of it, they did do that.
Okay.
They actually say there's some buildings where we're underutilizing some space.
Okay.
And I think they're specifically looking at, for instance, the town hall building and stuff.
Yep.
So they did look at that to a degree, yes. And if a department head said, we'll use an example, the community center. If they said to them, we're looking at a new building or something, they did listen to those views. I don't know if they recommended or not a new building, but they did. Anything the department heads were told to give their input to them as they were doing the report, so that all items that they were concerned about would be put in the
Okay.
report, okay?
Yep.
So that every department head that had a building had the chance to make input to the report.
I just wasn't sure if the scope of, if it kind of the future needs were incorporated in the scope of that, or if, I kind of took it as more just the current physical space
Well,
now as it is.
Yeah, it's
and-
kind of looking at the current space, in some cases touches on the space, but it also touches on something that we have to look at very seriously too, is the maintenance of the buildings. You know, I was talking with the DPW director, who, as you know, maintains the buildings, and there's very little maintenance done. I mean, other than cleaning the buildings, there's very little regular maintenance done, and that's something else that has to be considered. How do we actually maintain the buildings on top of improving them? So that's another issue that we're gonna look at. So what I'm expecting to do is to have the person who that's in charge of the report come and make a presentation to the board of selectmen, so you can ask questions about the report and kind of kick things back and forth with him. So he's gonna make one presentation to you guys about the report, okay?
Okay, thank
And that
you.
report will be given to, of course, the capital improvement committee and the finance committee. It'll be an online thing, so everybody can look at it, okay?
Okay, it would be good for the master plan steering committee to have that also, I would think, just kind of.
I think the
for
concept
it.
is we'll get it on our website, and then anyone who wants to look at it in town can look at it, because not only do we need to educate ourselves as town administrators and selectmen and all that, we need to educate the public, because eventually we have to ask them for the money. So they need to understand why we're asking for the money. So I think it's good for so many different reasons to build our future. And like I said, the hard part, I think, is gonna be the funding. Where do we get the money? That's always the difficult challenge.
So, through
Thank
the
you.
chair, so when they did the study, they didn't talk to anybody on the master plan or any of the committees that
No, they
had
really
similar
focused with the department heads. They didn't really get into master planning. It's more designed current capital improvement needs. Again, I think they touched on some of the long-term needs that department heads would say, and those would be the same department heads that would respond to the master plan of what they might do. So I think they've had a touch of it, but no, they did not meet with the master planning committee. It wasn't, they said the main focus was capital improvements, not long-term future needs. That was not the main focus of it, so. Okay?
Thank you.
So the next thing we're working on is the pavement management plan. Joe Buckley has been intensely involved in this. What that plan does is look at the long-term needs of the roads and sets up a plan for, which road should be fixed first, which one gives you kind of the best return on investment, how to use the Chapter 90 funds. That request for proposal document went out. We have not yet reviewed proposals. They haven't come in yet, and we haven't gone through that process. But that process is also moving forward. And I think Joe's excited about that, having a real plan put forward that he could share with everybody. And again, the issue is how do we find money to fund road repairs, which is always the problem, since right now exclusively funding comes from the Chapter 90 sources. So that's a key issue. One of the things, I've spent more time than I'd like to think about talking about the budget in the last few months with my department heads, because obviously that was the important issue going forward in town meeting. So we spent a lot of time putting that all together. I had another department head meeting on Monday. The purpose of that discussion was now to look at long-term goals for the departments. So I'm asking all my department heads to develop individual departmental long-term goals for their departments. And what I told them I'm going to do with those goals, and I sent them a form today to make sure they're consistent in how they apply it. But some departments might only have about 2 or 3 major goals. Building department might be smaller, but DPW might have much more goals. So they're asked to explain what their goal is, what the goal and objective is, why it's important, the timeline for accomplishing that goal and objective, resources in terms of people they might need, or even help of other departments, and then the percentage of completion as we go along, because the idea obviously is to see at various stages how far they along are achieving those goals. So that went out to them, and they're supposed to turn that in by the end of July. And I'm going to meet as a team and see how all of us can work together to achieve those goals as a team effort, not just an individual department effort. And I think they were pretty excited about having the opportunity to do that. By making them write down the goals and objectives, they're more real, and they don't forget them. Other smaller items don't get in the way. So I think it's really important that we document those goals and objectives. And I will put them all, and we'll probably put them on like a TV screen in here. We'll have the goals and objectives of each department. We'll have the department head go through the goals and objectives, and other department heads will be able to comment too. So we share ideas about how to achieve those goals. So that's something I have, quite frankly, felt was important for a long time. I've only been here 6 months, and other things were kind of priorities, but that's one of the things that we're looking at now is departments.
If I could use that quick question
Sure.
through the chair. Back to the pavement management. So does that include parking lots and stuff, or is that only roadways?
I can only give you, I think, because I'm not absolutely sure, but I think it's really just roadways.
Okay.
You know, the question of, is it town parking lots, owned parking lots, I'm not sure that answer, I'll check with Joe, and I'll email it out to you, let you know.
Okay,
I
the only,
think
only
it's-
reason I ask is because I know that they put a parking lot in here, and they cleared a big lot and stuff next to the post office, but
Right.
the town voted to do 5 or 6 years ago to expand the parking at the community center
Right.
because you have young children running around parking lots and seniors trying to park, and it was a real safety issue. And that's never been addressed, but all these other things have been done, so I didn't know if that was something that was gonna be
Yeah, I will
addressed with
check into
this.
that, Linda, and give you an answer tomorrow. I just don't know off the top of my head in the payment management plan.
I think
It
that,
generally focuses on roads, and quite frankly, the difficulty Joe has is that he has way less chapter 90 money than needs. So
Right.
I don't know,
But this was money set aside.
Yeah, I was gonna
So-
say.
Money
So
that's-
they
you mean
don't-
you set aside money to fix that
it's
parking
5 or
lot?
6 years
Town
ago.
meeting.
And it's never
Town
been
meeting.
spent 5 or 6 years
Right.
later?
Right.
So
I believe, okay, so we
is-
looked into this through the chair if I can.
Sure,
I believe that money, because Lyndon and Leah are right, that was set aside at town meeting. But I think the language, it might, I remember inquiring about this earlier, maybe last year. And I believe the money was used for a different improvement, simply because I believe the article was worded ambiguously enough to where it didn't just have to be applied to the parking lot. So Ron, we might want to check with Joe
Yep.
on that, because that's something I've been trying to track down for a year now as to what happened with that money and what's going on with the project.
Well, I'd like to put that
It's-
on a future agenda too, because I don't think
Yeah.
we should be using money for other purposes when our residents voted it for a specific purpose, whether it allows or not, so.
Understood.
I would like
Yeah.
clarification on that, because that will be an issue. That was a safety issue that was
Yep.
supposed to be addressed, and
Right.
this parking lot was done, other things were done well before that, so, yeah, I would like clarification on.
I would be happy to do that, Linda, and I'll get you the answer.
Because like I
As
said, they
quickly
have
as I
soccer
can.
fields and kids running around, you have,
Yep.
you know, seniors coming in trying to park, and we were trying to keep people safe and expand that parking area, so it was important that it be addressed, so.
I'm curious too, because again, there was a lot of transition and so, I mean, this obviously got dropped, but why that wasn't done right away, because the money was set
Right.
aside. And that really should have been done 4 or 5 years. It might
Well, I
have
think
even
there's a
been
lot of
sooner,
outstanding
but-
articles that have balances on them that I know you had mentioned that you were supposed to be bringing to us
Well,
and
we
check
knew
on
the one
those
that
older
we
ones.
talked a lot, I talked a lot to the finance committee about the project, there's some money, as I discussed with you guys in the past about setting up a building plan for the community center, a future building plan, that money's sitting aside doing nothing either. So we gotta decide if we're gonna move forward with that or not.
But I'm talking about like past articles
Yeah,
where
we can look
funds
at
were
this,
set
yeah.
aside for specific purposes that
Yeah,
have
I'll try
sat
to
for a
find out.
time, so.
See
Is
what we
there
have
is there some way that we can get a list of those, just so we can have a concrete list of stuff that the town has voted on and warrant articles that has not yet been completed, so we can start, now that we're returning to a more normal world, and we can start reprioritizing actual municipal government.
And through the chair, if I can request
Yeah.
that the actual initial article be provided to us, the amount of money set aside, and the balance, and if funds have been utilized, I'd like to know how they were utilized.
Yeah, like to Lyndon's point, maybe in like an Excel spreadsheet with those line items, and we can take a look at it.
Yeah, I could take care, that's a combination of needing.
So I'm sorry, but that whole went
No,
into
that's-
the pavement thing, that's why I was just
That's a
curious
reason-
whether that was gonna be addressed, so.
It's a very reasonable request, Lyndon, so I'll be happy to work on that and see what we can get you. And I think you're right, I mean, if they put through an article for a specific purpose, they should use it for that purpose.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know because I wasn't here, but I'll find out that for you and try to put up some kind of report or something for you, okay?
Thank you.
One question I just kind of want to do it before I get into it, because I said to Joe when I get back from vacation that I want to look at this issue, but I want to know that the board has an interest in it. So behind the library is a piece of property that's being used by DEP for pipes and all kinds of junk back there, right? And one of the things I suggested I would really love is that I know we use the town common for a variety of events, but it's not that big. And the question I said to Joe, because there is Department of Conservation money sometimes to build parks or something like that, but I don't want to go and apply for money to turn that into a park. Joe can move that stuff out of there, and we could work it out. We could turn that into a park and extension. It would give a place for maybe a public concert, bands to play and stuff like that. But I wanted to know if the selectmen like that concept for me to start working on it. I don't want to work on it and then find out that you guys have no interest in that. But I think it would make a nice addition to things that are on the common and have more public events. Because right now you only have the field, and whenever we do something on the field, it takes away from baseball and soccer and everything else. And be nice to have an area that can be exclusively used for, town kinds of events.
I think the town center study group, that's part of the recommendation, the set of recommendations coming forward. I think by hopefully the end of this month or beginning of July, that package will be put forward. So I think that was definitely one of the kind of ideas that had come out of that working group, was a way to kind of cohesively transition additional outdoor kind of passive recreation, similar to just what you said, space.
Does the board object if I start looking for grants to do
No,
something?
Well, I think
through
the
board-
problem-
through the dementia friendly program, Nancy had looked into that. There were grant funds available to do similar type parks and things like that for the seniors. And I know she had brought that forward, and she had worked with the state on the whole dementia friendly community aspect of it. So there may be funding available for similar type projects.
Through the chair, if I can, if everyone can hear me. The problem that I see is the same problem we run into this year with the budget, and that we're going to run into next year, which could potentially be even worse. It's not obtaining the money for the project, it's the maintenance. I mean, we have, crews right now that aren't able to get to certain things because they're stretched thin. It's a personnel issue. I mean, we cleared out that lot behind the post office, and now it's just a weed patch back there. And again, it's just, okay, so we get the money to do the park. Well, who's going to maintain it? Who's going to mow it? Who's upkeeping the facilities? We can't even upkeep the the capital facilities we have right now. So it's more of a long-term issue when it comes to sustainability, rather than, okay, we got $100,000 in grant funding, but where's the money to maintain it over a 5-10 year period? That's my concern.
Good one too.
Well, that was always the concern with Rutland Heights. A lot of people wanted fields and everything else, and our concern was it wasn't going to bring in revenue, and it was going to be a maintenance cost to it. So that's a legitimate concern with them.
Okay, so
I mean, if I may, Skip,
Sure, go ahead.
I personally don't have an issue with starting to explore, but I do know,
Of
and
course.
maybe talk to Dave George, and I know the Town Center Study Group has a package that we're just trying to get final input and everything to put together, but that kind of lumps into that, the Town Center study piece, as well as making it a little bit more business friendly. If we can host concerts or events or something that would attract some people to town, that could then support the businesses on Main Street, Maple Ave, Palmagussit, the downtown, and of course funding and the long-term care is always a concern. So whether it's, some of it was maybe getting like sponsorships as far as either scouts or something to assist or something, but I don't know, looking for some volunteer groups or something.
Yeah. So
Okay.
through the chair, to your point, yeah, if there's, it's always good to be looking at funding sources, especially if it goes in line with the plan that they're currently working on. So
Yeah, we just don't want another situation like Putnam Park,
yeah.
where it's been overeaten by the earth and no one even knows it's there.
Yeah.
But Ron, Mass Development has a pretty active program now. I've gotten some parks funded in Central Mass through that, and especially if Leah, if this is going to be part of like a master plan recommendation, then you could reach out, Ron, to CMRPC or Mass Development, because there's always money around for that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
there actually is some money through a conservation, Department of Conservation that
Yeah.
has it too. That I actually got in another town that we applied for and got ones. Sometimes they would like a little bit of matching funds too, so I just gotta look into it. I just didn't wanna spend a lot of time on it if there was no interest of the board, so that's why I wanted to get a little perspective from the board about doing it. So, that's fine, it gives me room to kinda at least look at it and bring back stuff to the board for their decision, so that's fine. All right, I'm good with that. I'll wait to the marijuana item next for my next item.
So everybody happy?
I guess it's still under me.
Yep,
Yeah,
we'll
that's-
go to the marijuana.
So it's under the same thing, yeah, I know it's
Yep.
separate. So as you know, I gave you guys all a copy of the RFI. The RFI is put on a goods and services bulletin, it was put on our website, and it was posted in the local newspaper. So we follow all the procurement processes. This is specifically for a manufacturer. As you know, it has to be open to the whole public. I know you guys know there's a specific company interested in this, but it doesn't matter, because when it comes before the evaluation team that we put together, they have to score all the proposals and pick the one that is the best for the community at large. So that is where we're at right now. And I feel good that we've done a really good job following procurement law and making sure that it's been out in the public for anyone who has an interest in that. There are two licenses or 3 licenses. One is our friend, it's on our Zoom page here. Sean has one for cultivation. We have another one for cultivation, and we have a retail one. So this manufacturing will be number 4, and we would have one open for the future if we decide to move in some direction after that. And it could be any one of the licenses except for retail.
Retail.
Retail is subject to 1. So that's where we're at today, and we'll see how it goes out. I just wanted to keep you informed. And it's the RFI is very much like the RFP I put out before, the RFI I put out on growing before, so it's not all that different. You should be very familiar with it.
And
So-
it's open for
I'm
30,
So this isn't open yet, right?
Yeah, it's
Oh, it
actually
is.
open
Okay,
now.
so is there, is there
It's on
any
the Goods and
dates?
Services Bulletin,
Oh, the dates are on here?
the state system.
Okay, I'm sorry, Tuesday the
Yeah.
13th of May.
Yeah, I know. Sean wanted to ask me a
Sean
question,
Moore.
so.
Come right ahead.
Yeah, Sean Moore, like Ron said, I do, hold one of the licenses. I'm not sure if the town's aware when it comes to these licenses, other than the retail, that in the bylaw, I'm pretty sure because I helped write it, that town would accept 5 of each of the additional licenses. So that's 5 cultivations, 5 manufacturers, 5 whatever, other than retail. So when you say that we only allow for 1 more, I think you need to look at the bylaw again.
Okay. I mean, I was understanding it was 4,
No,
5 total
5.
licenses, with
No,
1 being
5.
retail, 4 other. But I'll have to relook at it.
Yeah, 5, 'cause, I mean, I helped write it, so I think you can take my word for it. 5 of the other licenses, that's how it was written, because since retail was only allowed for 1, we gave the opportunity for multiple companies to come in on the other licenses. So like I said, and that was one of the questions that I asked, that since multiple licenses, 5 of each, now, I mean, it is limited, limited to 5 to each. If multiple applicants apply for, say, manufacturing, or apply for testing or delivery of any one of those licenses that are listed in the bylaw, is the town gonna accept more than 1?
Can I ask a question to
Go ahead.
the person? Sean, I'm a little confused. So you're saying that the way the bylaw was crafted, it allowed for 21 marijuana licenses, of
That's
which only
correct.
1 was a retail?
Only 1 was retail, yep.
Are you familiar with that? That's not the way I read it, but. Okay, I'll revisit that and let the select board know. That was not my understanding of it, so I'm gonna have to reread it, Sean, and I'll get a clearer answer. But my understanding was a total of 5.
I thought that there was something about allowing more for cultivation or something. I thought that some of them had more strict restrictions than others, but I don't remember
Well,
off the top of my
Right.
head.
The way I
specifically.
read it, and again, I don't have it in front of me, but the way I read it, there was 5 licenses, only 1 of which could be retail, and the other 4 could be any mixture of any other type of license. That's the way I read it.
No,
But Sean's reading
I'm
it
pretty
differently.
sure, that's the way, that's not the way it's written. I helped write it.
I can only say to you, Sean, that was the conversation I would with our town planner, so I will revisit that and double check it, and I'll give you a clear answer, okay?
Okay, appreciate that. And, so all of the licenses are, well, I had a list here, if you just go ahead and, I hope that the list was circulated to the rest of the board, the questions that I had.
Well, the other,
I sent it directly to well, I thought was the chair. Mitch, I didn't know that you stepped down from being the chair.
No, I'm not physically in the
Oh,
room
okay.
tonight.
Oh, okay. I would hope you should stay the chair. You're doing a good job, and I appreciate what you do. But yeah, was are all the licenses subject to procurement law? And that was one of the questions that I had. So we'll stick with that one.
Let me just say, I know Sean had, through the chair, had messaged me earlier today that he sent out a list of questions. I have my email open now, Sean. I don't think that I got that. Maybe it was
Ron
to the
did. He
wrong.
replied to me.
Okay, Ron did. Okay, great.
if I could, through you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Yes.
So he did
Oh,
have some
sorry.
questions, and I have it in front of me. Our license is subject to procurement law. I believe that they are, but we follow procurement law regardless if they are or aren't, Sean. That's why we set up the whole evaluation team and we put out RFIs. So we do follow the procurement law. I'm not absolutely sure that in this case, that you necessarily have to follow all the rules of the procurement law, because some towns are not putting out RFIs. It's been on a first serve, first come, first served basis. So, I know that there's numerous towns that have not, put out RFIs or any of this stuff. But we have in Rutland followed the procurement law. Your second,
Yeah, well, about the procurement law, is that for every business that comes into Rutland? You have to, if a pizza shop wants to come out, you have to put out to the public for multiple pizza shops? I mean, what's the equality of
this is specific to the marijuana establishments. It's specific to, because the town has to issue, as you know, a hosting agreement. So
Okay.
you're correct that we don't do it with every business. It's strictly only done for marijuana type licenses.
Okay.
Yeah, through the chair, if I can, because we were part of these conversations, and I think, Leah, you were on the board too when we had this conversation last year. When the CCC came in, they recommended we go through procurement, even though I think they made clear we don't have to for the issuance, because it helps maintain an equitable process and it's more transparent. Now, Leah, do you remember that being the gist of the conversation with the CCC as well?
Yeah, I remember that, and I also remember them saying not to use the procurement process as a holdup to prevent, to not allow the forward movement if the town voted for marijuana establishments to come in, to not let that they thought that it was important that it was very equitable and that offered the best chance for equity, but then also not to let that become a kind of stonewall for something that the town had voted to approve.
So through you, Mr. Chairman. So a procurement process in these kind of licenses effectively takes about 2 months. It takes me a couple of weeks to draft it up, to get it ready, to post on the goods and services bulletin, to do all the advertisements. And then we generally let these RFIs stay open for a month. And then it takes us a couple of weeks to, depending upon the department heads and when they're available, to review all the proposals and do an independent analysis and make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. So this process isn't unbelievably long, but it's about a 2-month process, give or take a week or so.
If I may, through the chair, you mentioned equity. We all know equity and equality are two different things. So what's the town doing to ensure equity? I mean, because it seems like right now you're looking for best fits of the town, basically through money-wise and time and service, I would say. So how is the town ensuring the state requirements for when it comes to social equity, members of disparagement, people of color, and people that qualify for social equity, which gives them not an equal chance, but a better chance than companies that are applying, like these major multi-state organizations or just huge multi-million-dollar industries.
So through the chair.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, Sean, thank you for this question, and it made me have to do some homework today to understand what you meant by a social equity program. The CCC has a whole program on social equity program, which citizens can apply to the program free of charge, and it basically educates them to how to apply for a license. It actually allows them some reduction in costs through CCC and everything else, but it's designed specifically for those people who feel they've been harmed due to marijuana in the past. So let's say you were arrested for marijuana in the past. This actually helps you to sort of get an advantage on other types of companies by signing up for this social equity program. So it's a whole program administrated by the state. I sent you back the information on that. It can expedite licenses. It can waive application fees. It has a whole bunch of benefits if you're part of this, if you become part of this program that they offer. So I think the state is making a great attempt to trying to give advantages to people who've been hurt by past marijuana or criminal laws as they relate to marijuana. Now, in the town's perspective, while this is a state program, the town does something else. If you remember in the RFI, and I re-examined our RFI today in the manufacturers, we also allow when we do our evaluation, we say that people who bring forward proposals, that one of the things that we're gonna be analyzing is minority or women-owned businesses, that applicants would get points for bringing forward a proposal that help serve people that were in minority statuses. So, the town does do some of that. You're correct in it focuses at the whole package in total, but the application process itself from a Rutland basis does look at minority controlled businesses and the hiring process, and who the applicants are is a consideration as part of the proposals that are brought forward.
Okay. That was pretty much, I appreciate you answering those questions. As far as the amount of licenses, yeah, I don't have it in front of me either, it's all in the file. But, yeah, it is a lot, 21, if you counted it, how many elections, 21, that's a lot, but in the bylaw, it's written that 5 of the one retail and then 5 of the other licenses.
So Sean, I'll do that evaluation tomorrow, and I will copy the Board of Selectmen on the results of that, and I'll copy you as to what I tell the Board of Selectmen as well, okay?
I appreciate that, thank you.
You are very welcome, sir.
I'm all set then.
Any other comments on this?
I do have one comment,
Go right
if I
ahead.
may.
Yes.
We make mention in the RFI that if somebody should open an establishment in Rutland and then basically break their contract to go open one in the next town over, that there are penalties for them to do that. Do we look for the reciprocation of that? When we're looking, as somebody's asking to come into our town, do we look at the other side? Where are they coming from if they're not a brand new company? Are they, I know the onus is not
Right.
on us, but I think I would be very curious to know if they've left a bad contract behind.
Can I jump in through the chair?
Yep, go ahead, Mitch.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Ron, but that's pretty much, and you're talking about right in the RFI or the agreement itself, Carol, is that?
Yes.
It's my understanding, and I think that's a great question. I'd like some clarification on that too. It's my understanding that simply protects the towns and the surrounding towns from ostensibly having a company come in and pit the towns in negotiation against each other for something that could potentially benefit, I guess, the region. I mean, I've seen that language in other contracts for economic development. Ron, is that's kind of boilerplate, isn't it?
Well, through you, Mr. Chair. So the question is that, we have 3 essentially hosting agreements that we've already done.
Yeah.
Sean, I don't think, at least I'm not aware of him doing any kind of past, program in any other town, but the other 2 have. So one of the things that we look at in our evaluation is the experience of the applicant and their past performance of the applicant. We've not had a situation where anybody tries to bid against each other. That really isn't a problem, because strictly the money that we've taken is generally, it's flat, 3%. For anything other than retail is a straight 3%. It's called a certain fee, I can't remember. It basically pays for expenses to the town. Impact kind of fee.
Yeah, community impact.
Community
fee,
impact
right.
fee. So that's 3%. And then if you had a retail one, it could be up to 6% of gross revenues. But no, we haven't had anybody try to compete between us and another town and say, give us a better deal. Everybody's got the same deal on the table. It's really where they want to open. That's all.
Yeah, I don't think I'm thinking about competing. I think I'm thinking, if they have already been in a company and they closed that down or broke a contract. So I guess it's looking at, getting references. Did they leave everything in good order?
So when the
So I
company
guess,
we have,
Carol, is just for my clarity, what is your fear? Just, I'm trying to get my head around, is it just that like a reference kind of thing? Is that?
Because we make such a big, it's a big point that if somebody's in town and they've got a contract, for the 3 or 5 years, I'm sorry, I don't remember which, the length of it. But they break the contract and they go someplace else. That company is responsible to fulfill their contract and penalties and whatnot. But do we look to see if they've done that to somebody else? Are they in another establishment, they're breaking a contract and they've decided to come set up shop with us?
So,
That's a good
through
question.
you, generally, you don't have that problem because of the company. Truthfully, when you have that problem, it's usually a problem of the town, and I'll have to explain to you why. And I'm gonna use Southbridge as an example, because it kinda happened there, right? So sometimes, companies go to towns and they wanna do, let's say, a growing facility or a cultivation facility, and they start going through all the process, and all of a sudden the landowner nearby where they wanna do it, all of a sudden, gets angry and starts fighting it before the town boards and commissions and everything else, and it becomes so expensive and so slow of a process that the company backs out. That's more likely to happen than what you're thinking of, because it is a controversial topic in some towns as to do it or not. So I've seen companies withdraw from the town because it just is gonna take them too long and expensive. I have not seen the reverse where a town, does something to stop it, or they pull out and withdraw, because it costs them money to come forward with these proposals. They have to do the RFP, it's a lot of time, so they generally don't pull out. At least I haven't seen that where they pull out for some strange reason. Because like I say, if they do it here in Holden, it's 3%. There's not really there's a dollar reason to do it. I guess they could say maybe they were analyzing a market. Let's say they were doing retail here and they found a better market, and maybe they could pull out for that reason. But to date, I've not been exposed with that in the 5 years I've been involved with this process.
Okay.
So, okay.
I think, Skip if I may, I think also the CCC does a lot of, the Cannabis Control Commission also does a lot of vetting, so, the town's due diligence, and then there's still the state due diligence also, so it's kind of a little bit of both and. So I think it's a good question, and I think that we ask for references and everything. Obviously, we can kind of on our own research the companies a little bit to see their history and everything, especially if they've already been involved in the state, then there's more information.
As a matter of fact, a comment further on Leah says there's requirements for the state goes through and does very thorough background checks and criminal record checks on these, because you have to be spotless to be able to get one of these licenses through the CCC. So I think the extensive review probably happens, and we do check reference and things like that, but extensively, I think the deeper dive into individuals and stuff is done through the CCC. Although we do ask that in our RFI about the staff and who they are and everything else, so.
Yeah.
Sean has his hand up. Sean has his hand up again.
Sean, go ahead.
Yes, sir, I couldn't find my button. On the, I went ahead and pulled up the bylaw, and on the subsection 88, restriction and prohibitions, part B, it says, there shall be no more than 5 special permits issued for licensed marijuana establishments in the town of Rutland at any given time, provided, however, that this provision should not apply to retail, which licensed LMEs are subject to 88, subject to 88C. So it has the licensed marijuana establishments other than retail. So, I mean, right there it says 5.
Yeah, that's the,
5 for all, Sean, not just for growing.
Well, it says for licensed
It says
marijuana
for all.
establishments. So I think that could be, it's due to interpretation.
yeah, the way you read it though, Sean, to be honest with you, from my perspective, and I'll look at it again, is very clear. 5 licenses, period. That answers the question entirely, because what you would be suggesting is 21 separate licenses, so.
Well, it says 5 licenses for LM licensed marijuana establishments.
Right, and that
So,
includes all the
so
different
there's
types.
so many types of licenses that are available. 5, well, it's, I don't know. I see it could be up to a court, up to court, but that's, I remember a discussion, and if you go through the minutes of the committee, that they were, it doesn't say specific, it just says for licensed marijuana establishments. And there are so many different types of licensed marijuana establishments. And it's just for 5.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite say 5 only.
Yeah.
It's not, see, it's not otherwise stated, 5 only.
So, Sean, through you, Mr. Chairman?
Good.
It says very specifically, I'm looking at the bylaw now, and I'm seeing what you're reading. It's very specific, there shall be no more than 5 special permits issued for LMEs in the town of Rutland at any given time. So that's very, very clear as can be, no more than
But-
5.
Yeah, but there's, I don't know, it's,
And I can tell you,
I'm not
what,
reading it that
yeah,
way.
I'll tell you what else,
Because
Sean, when law is interpreted, the way it's interpreted is what the intention of the people who voted on the bylaw is. And I think that, unless members of the Board of Selectmen tell me otherwise, I think when it was discussed at the town meeting, nobody ever suggested it was gonna be 21, but it was suggested at 5. So when a court looks at it, they would interpret what happened at town meeting and what the intention of the people who supported the bylaw. And from what I'm seeing on the Board of Selectmen, everybody recalls it as 5 and not 21. So I think if it was challenged in court, I think it would be clear that it would be limited at 5. Just, that's my opinion, for what it's worth.
Okay, so we're gonna move on.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to skip over 133 and go to 151. Discussion with William Cannon's tree dedication and ceremony. Can you help us out on that, Mitch?
Yeah, he's leading that.
Through the chair, if I can, so we had a moment of silence at the last meeting for Bill Cannon, who served a long time on conservation. Very passionate about that. I think some of us on the board knew his family. I talked to the widow about doing something later in the summer, perhaps. I mean, obviously the family's going through a lot right now, but with the time is appropriate. And I asked to speak on the agenda. I think we might want to keep it or revisit it when we have a date. But again, Rutland Nurseries, Bonnie Bessie was gracious enough to donate a tree. I talked to Mr. Steiner about some signage. What I wanted this on the agenda for was to task, if it's okay with the board, Ron and Mr. Buckley perhaps to identify an appropriate location for a tree planting that is kind of publicly viewable and would be appropriate, and present to the board with options that maybe we can present to the family. That would be my ask of the board.
How does the board feel? I don't think we need a motion for this. You have any problem with Ron and, Nope, sounds good to me, Mitch.
Yeah, we'll take care of it, Mitch.
All right, and then what we can do is, when we have the locations, I'll circle back with the family and we can pick a date if everyone's amenable to it. Like I said, later in the summer, and we can have a little, an event that's appropriate and pay our respects there.
Okay, sounds good. Moving on to the electronic sign policy. What have you got on that, Ron?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, obviously we all know there's a nice brand new sign out in front of the town hall to educate people as to what's going on with town events. One of the concerns we had is that there's gonna be a lot of people who are going to be looking for the ability to put information on that sign. And we wanted to stress the importance of certain priorities. Obviously, important town meetings and town events that are, part of the town, emergency situations, weather conditions, all would have priority in a sign. But we wanted to have some kind of policy to bring forward to the Board of Selectmen. I want to thank Mike Moriarty, who's been kind of leading the effort on this sign, to help draft up this policy. And I've reviewed it and we made some changes together. But it sets kind of a listing of things that we believed are important that should have first priority. We also wanted to have a maximum of 4 messages up at one time, because as you know, we pass by the sign in seconds, and you can't have 20 messages up and forcing them all through. So we wanted to have enough time for people to be able to read those messages up.
I just through the chair on that one. I mean, you're not gonna read all the messages when you pass, and it's my understanding that like the more important ones, you could repeat more often.
And longer.
So, why would you need to limit it to 4? If it was according to, the need or the sensitivity of it, it could repeat more often, but nobody's gonna read 4 anyway. You're only gonna see what you see when you go by. So I'm not quite sure why 4 is the number.
Well, this was our recommendation to the board, if the board wants to make more, we can. We simply were trying to, to keep the messages on for a little longer period of time, so, maybe we have it on for 6 seconds instead of 4 seconds or whatever, so we were trying to give the most important messages a little bit longer in time. Messages, for most cases, are only up a day or two, and then it's a new message, or a couple of days, and there's a new message, so, we were trying to make it to where, the important messages had time to be reviewed by people as much as possible, but, Mike, when he originally suggested this, he suggested 8, and we had a long conversation about it, and we decided on 4, but I would not be object to 6.
Well, like I said, I think you can repeat the more important ones more often.
And longer, right.
And longer, so, what about the election one, has that been on the board continuously, about the election coming up on the 28th?
I know
'Cause
they had the
obviously
town
that's an
meeting
important
stuff
one.
up, but you're talking about the override question
Right.
date, right?
I would think
So I know
would
that
be
me and
on
Mike
there.
talked about it, I don't know, I haven't looked to see
I
if
don't
it's
think
up,
it
but we
has
did
been.
talk about it, but I will check
Cause
tomorrow
I know
to
we're
make
gonna
sure.
discuss that
Yeah.
tonight, the importance of it, and it hasn't been up, that
Yeah.
I've noticed for all this time, which I think
Yeah.
would have been a priority to have that on there,
Yeah,
so.
and I agree, I'll check it tomorrow and see, I know me and Mike talked about it, I'm surprised if it's not up, I'm surprised.
And I did notice the one about the town meeting was on there quite a while after, so somebody needs to, make sure that
Well-
messages go off when they can, and that the important ones go on as
So to
soon as
give you some
possible.
perspective about it, right, so, the only one that's been trained by the company so far is Mike, and Mike is gonna do kinda train a trainer kind of thing, so
Okay.
he's gonna, educate me and Beth and DPW about how to run it, cause you can do it through software online.
Mhm.
You can even do it from home, so Mike is reaching out to us to train us all to do it, and it frankly, I spent a few minutes just looking at it over his place, and it's almost like a Word and Publisher
Yeah.
kind of software, so it doesn't look all that hard, to be honest with you. But so far, he's been kind of in control of it and changing the messages over.
And I did look,
so I'll check
looking
it.
at this paperwork, it looks like you've simplified, cause I know that it was nice and fancy, but it was hard to read. So it looks like on this that you're gonna make it more basic, black, white, like
That's
bold.
exactly right.
Okay.
Some of them you saw, like, the one that kind of bothered me, then there's the emergency alert one, I
Yeah.
couldn't read it.
No,
And it was just
and I
it
could
was,
be, I could be sitting in front of it,
Right.
and actually I was sitting in front of the town hall, and Nancy was asking me what the sign said, and I have no idea what the sign said.
and that's the one it bothered me a lot. That's why we did want to simplify it. That's why we don't want pre-cut signs. We want to limit it to, and there's a whole bunch of colors you can use, but we chose to keep it black and
Right.
white to keep it simple. So yes, we are
Because I know the one
simplifying
in
it.
Holden with that crazy intersection, I mean, I know everything going on in Holden with the times I've gone through there. It's bold,
Yeah.
it's simple, it's quick, and
It's also at a red light, which helps. I mean,
yeah, but even
But-
when I'm driving onto the road and stuff like that, you just see it, so.
That's
And
our
they have a
plan.
lot of messages on there, so that obviously works,
Yeah.
works well, so.
Again, this is a recommendation, you guys, so if you wanna add it to 6 or something, I'm good with it. But you're right, we are simplifying it, we're trying to set some priorities, and, again, I can change it, it gives me some leeway depending upon what it is to come to the town administrator, and I can approve stuff. But we just want everybody to kinda understand the basic policy that,
Oh, yeah,
you
there's gotta be
can't
a
put your flea
policy.
market ahead of, town meeting. You know what I mean, it's just,
Yeah,
it's gotta be something that government has is served first, and then social groups and nonprofits would be after that.
thank you.
With the chair.
Go right.
Number 6 on that, could you clarify veterans returning from active duty service 4 calendar days after return? Is that when it gets posted or how long it stays?
I think the concept here, and again, this is something Mike put on, so I think what they're trying to do is when somebody comes home, they're recognizing them.
Yes.
And putting them up, so, they wanna do it quickly after somebody returns, they don't wanna wait till they're, long, so I think they're trying to do it as quickly after they come back as
Right,
possible.
right.
The timing of that is something that more decided about what's needed to be put on the board, cause if there's no reason to take something down fast, we may leave things up longer, you know what I mean? If we have important messages that have to go up, it may knock down messages, so it's all depending upon what's needed to be put on the board as to how long something might stay on it,
I would just recommend that we make that any veterans returning not less than 1 week. up on the board. I mean, I just.
Not less than 1 week after they return, you mean?
No, so once it goes up on the board, I think it should stay for
For a
at least a
week?
week. And then I do have one on
I'm
the.
sorry, just a clarification, Carolina. So I was reading it as within 4 days of their returning. They're
That it
gonna
needs
put it
to be
on
up.
there, not like they would only be on for
Right,
4
I
days.
so I
was-
just wanted to make sure,
I
I
was-
didn't,
But that doesn't say the extent of how long it will be
Right,
on
could
there.
stand for a month, I
And-
mean, I don't know, it's-
Based on, it says priorities and length of time, I was reading it as it would stay on for
The
4
length of
days
time.
after
yes.
they return.
So what's the intent on that, Ron? Is it 4
I think-
days, but within 4 days of them returning or on for 4
I
days?
guess when I read it, and I didn't ask Mike the question, I read it that they wanna put the message up right after the person returns, that they wanted to get it up, not wait a long period of time. I didn't frankly ask Mike for the interpretation, that was the way I interpreted it, but the issue of the length of it being on there is dependent upon what has to go on the sign. So it could be on there a week, it could be on there 2 weeks, depending upon what the message
But
is.
again,
in
to
the meeting.
Lyndon's point, if we can put a town meeting and then another, and then another, and then town
Right.
meeting, and then a different one, and a different
Well, that's
one,
what
we
we
could, it
You could
wouldn't
leave that
matter
on
how
for an
long.
extended period of time, but just may not be as often, but at
Yeah.
least it
Again,
shows
these is,
respect.
if you wanna make a recommendation, motion to changes this, and
Okay,
like I say, you can add, if you wanna do them together as one motion or separate motions, I'm
okay.
totally open to suggestions.
Well, I guess, and it depends on if we're reading it right, because we're kind of looking at it
You
differently.
can also,
Yes.
you can also make it interpret it the way you want.
I'd say, I think it needs
But,
to be
but to your point,
clarified.
that's how I saw that.
Yeah, but we don't want it to be short term. We don't want to cut it short because it's a big deal,
It
so
is
we
a
want to
big
make
deal.
sure it's
Yeah.
respectful. And I'm not sure if this is saying only for 4 days or within 4 days.
Well,
so-
if you wanna make a clarification to it, I think
Okay.
it'd be, the board's decision to make that
So, and
clarification.
that was your original suggestion, Carol. Do you want it to read a specific way to make sure it's,
I do, I think you should make it a week.
to
The
run,
message has to stay up for a week?
to run for a period of no less than a week or something
Yep.
like that?
Correct.
So, yeah.
Okay, and then I do just on the form also, town department, community group, that's great, but then the dates of display, I don't think that we need to let people decide that, because it is prescribed on the front page, how long things will stay up. So maybe a start date,
Well-
but certainly not an end date, because I think then you're gonna be correcting people and getting back to them anyway. It's prescribed.
I gotta see what you're saying, cause I was thinking what you're just doing is that I wanna put up a sign for the flea market, I don't need it to be any longer than the date of the flea market, you know what I mean? I thought that's what I was thinking, that was it determines when they want it to end, because they don't want it to go past the time of the event.
I was gonna say, I can see kind of the benefit of having an end date for an event that has a specific,
End date.
like, to Lyndon's point earlier about the town meeting date, town meeting still being on after town meeting,
Right.
like, that doesn't
Yeah.
make sense,
Right.
but, so, it could be helpful for specific events to have that, just so whoever's programming the sign, can see it
When it
right
comes
there
out.
and not have
Right.
to go back and look at the date and
Right.
determine, is this like an,
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was thinking if they're looking at this, if it was an event, it would have, that would
Right.
be part, the date would be part of.
right.
So
Well,
I was
then
just looking
maybe
at
not,
less
yeah.
negotiation between people. It's like, no, I
Yeah,
said
no,
I wanted it for 3
I
weeks.
think it's the other, I think it is,
Okay.
the intention is that, let us know when you want us to take the thing down, so we know.
Okay.
May I say something about the sign through the chair?
Go right ahead.
Love the sign. God, we've been waiting for so long for a sign like that.
Yeah.
Awesome to see it up there. Don't forget about, you talk about people driving by. Don't forget about the pedestrians. Rutland is a very pedestrian-friendly place. So maybe, more than just 4 would be good, because a lot of pedestrians could stop and read it. One of the things that's been mentioned to me, and I say that, and I tell everybody that not really my decision anymore if I'm not on the planning board. That little sign that's in front of it, it's actually like moved a little bit away from it. I mean, it's so thin. I don't
It's a town
really
meeting
look at it when I see that sign, but what is that? No throughway? Is that
Oh,
what
no,
that
the
is?
sign, the entrance
sign that
sign
says
to the
different.
road.
Oh, for the
no,
road, I
yeah.
was thinking the town meeting sign was blocking a little
That
bit.
can be moved, Sean, I
Yeah.
wouldn't worry about it, it's in the process.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
Because
it's in
people
the
have asked me,
process.
and I'm like, I don't know, it's so tiny. How is that bothering you? But hey,
Yeah, it's in the process.
Truthfully,
But
I've
yeah,
al-
great, good job on the sign. It looks,
Yeah.
it really does. It looks good. It looks, I mean,
Yep.
I'm happy. A lot of people are happy. Everybody was jealous when Holden got theirs. Good to see.
That's good, John. I have a
Okay.
question though in my mind. What, has anybody considered help making some money with the town by putting on short ads for different businesses in town? Selling a spot?
So again, I think that, you know, we suspect that this is mostly gonna be used for town kind of activities, and we're not looking to make money off of it. We did put a
Hey,
$10.
Wait a minute. We're in financial disaster, and if you can make money for throwing a 2-second ad up there for Joe Blow's Pizza Shop, I mean, any consideration been done for
So-
that? I
so
mean, we
yeah.
got finance people from the finance department telling us we're in trouble financially, and hey, any way we can make a few dollars to help offset some of this, it would be great.
So the answer is no. We put in here a $10 fee for people like people that wanted to put messages on here that were not really town related, some kind of nonprofit or something. But we did not look at advertising for businesses. If the board wants us to consider that, I'm more than happy to look at that issue. But that is not something that we really focused on. We were looking at more of a community bulletin board than a
If I may,
vehicle.
through the chair,
Yeah.
I worry, I mean, I appreciate the thought, but I worry that if we start adding advertisements to it, that then that's going to detract from
Yeah.
people wanting to read the important messages on the
Okay,
board.
no, I just
That's,
was,
I mean,
I'm just looking at the other end of the financial end of it.
and I
And
totally
through the
get it.
chair, we kind of do that with the town signs, which I kind of don't understand where that's at, 'cause I thought that was supposed to rotate, that, you know, we have the advertisers under the Welcome to Rutland signs.
I think
And
it's
I
been
almost-
so
They
many
were for a
years.
period of time.
Yeah.
Right, so what was the period of time?
I think
3
they
or 5
set it
years,
up
I
for
think.
3
Yeah,
years.
it's
3
5
years.
years.
5 years?
It was either 3 or 5.
Yeah, I
think,
can't
I thought,
remember.
Do you
I
know
thought it
what
was
the
3, and I said
status
at the
of that
time,
is?
oh, it's way too long. But
Usually that's done to get them to pay for the cost of the sign.
That's what
That's
it was.
usually
Right,
what
it
it's
is,
done.
but it rotates,
And it
it's only
rotated
good for
for some
so
period of
long,
time.
so that's something that we have to
Which
maintain.
is-
But anyway, that's already a source of advertising that they're paying for
Yeah.
something. But I mean, that would be nice, but I agree with Lee, we're talking about they wanted to limit it to 4, I think
Yeah.
it should be more.
no
So if
problem.
we
I
add
would just-
ads, it might just be too much for people to keep up with.
If I can, through the chair too.
Go right ahead.
I am, and I apologize, I don't have the policy in front of me, it wasn't in my email. We're talking like nonprofits and you pay a fee and have your message up. Who's controlling the approval of that message? Because we've been in, regardless of what side of whatever political fence you're on, there's been a lot of divisiveness in our community over like social issues. And it's not a billboard, it's an informational sign for town business. I don't want it to become something that can become a lightning rod for controversy. And that's my only concern when you talk
Through
about
the
stuff
chair,
that's
Mitch,
going
it
on.
does say no political activities or events and. so it
Yeah,
does
but
say
like who's
appro-
defining that?
The administrator is the one approving it.
Yes,
Town
and it says
administrator.
no objectionable content to be determined by town administrator, no outside groups, no for-profit organizations, no religious messages or activities, no individual messages.
Now,
Okay, great.
through you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
Now, Mitch, just so you know, because there could be things where somebody that wants to put something on the sign disagrees with me, they can appeal my decision to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. All right, that's my only caveat is, you know, in today's day and age, especially now, we're in a hyper politicized climate, and I just want to make sure that the sign is a source of joy, like Sean just said, and let's just keep it that way, I guess.
Want to change to Mr. Gammon, so I don't know if Lyndon or anybody wants to change the number, this would be an
Oh, is that
opportunity
actually in
to.
the agreement it says?
Yeah, it's
4?
actually set 4 in the agreement, the number of messages, the very first paragraph. So if you wanted to change it to what you wanted, or Carol wants to add that month thing, you'd want to do an amendment, once we, I guess we need an amendment, I don't know if they have an amendment.
So we're actually approving
Approve
the
this first,
specific
but-
document?
But yeah, you might want to, if you want to do an amendment, I have no objection to either of the amendments that were
It said
discussed.
maximum of 4 at any one time.
Yep. So I would suggest
so you're
6.
talking 4 on the screen at once.
No,
The
no,
rotate-
no, rotating
4 in the
4.
system, right.
So they're rotating no more than 4.
Well, they've had it 2 and 3 on the screen at one time out there.
No,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
I guess I really can't read it because I haven't noticed that.
Okay, no, all right.
Well, I mean, it might get a little wordy, Ron, because what I wanted to say, maybe like from no more than between 4 and 8 with, according to priority with more frequent rotations, so.
Again, leave it up to the subject of the town administrator or everything. I have no objection, Mike has no objection. If you want to put between 4 and 8 subject to the town administrator Or if you just wanna put 6, whatever works for you guys.
Right, but see, I guess I just put in, I don't wanna just say like 6, because like I said, you might have 8,
messages.
but just, I wanna make sure that there's
Why don't-
something important is
Why don't
every
we just,
third
why don't we
time,
just say
so-
like, why don't we say a reasonable amount? I mean, this isn't a bylaw, this isn't going to town meeting. We could change it at any time. I mean, if Ron gets 8 of them and it's cycling too fast or nobody gets the information, then we can make an adjustment.
Maybe just
you
say
know, down the road.
rotations according to priority.
Well, that's
Exactly.
already what our
Yeah.
plan is.
Yeah, so.
The question is how many though?
No,
It's
no,
like-
rotations meaning every third be the town meeting or every, so if there may be like 6 or 8 messages, but every third time the town meeting is gonna come up between. So it's not just going through every message, so the more important ones would rotate more frequently.
Well, we can do that. The question is really just what do you want for a maximum number? We can rotate it according to priority and stuff. We'll take care of all that, but now how many maximum messages at one time do you want to be in the system rotating? I mean, you can
Can
say
I-
up to 8 if you want, and it gives us, we don't have to do 8, but up to 8.
8 seems kind of long.
I was gonna say, I would say up to 8 at the discretion of
Yeah,
The town
the
administrator.
town
right?
administrator and,
right, and I just wanna emphasize that the fact of rotating the more important messages.
Well, that's what we did, and quite frankly, I think truthfully, a lot of this is either gonna be controlled through public safety, through Mike.
Mhm.
I think you're gonna see storms, the messages and the timing is gonna be controlled more through DPW,
Right.
and more general ones will be
Well,
through my
yeah,
office. So it's
emergency
gonna be-
related ones might be every other one.
Yeah, it's gonna
If
be-
it's
it's
if
gonna be a
it's
mixture of-
something,
or
depending
everything
on
else
how-
gets put on hold and
Right,
it's
or
only
just
the
that,
emergency
right, it's gotta
ones.
be at the discretion, but I think that you're rotating
Yeah.
the more, like the town meeting coming up, you want that to be shown
Right.
more often, you don't want that to be every 8th time.
Right.
But, maybe every 4th time, or every 3rd time it goes town meeting and kinda rotates.
And I
So-
see it as a usage policy,
Yep.
so we can kind of, the sign's so new right now that as we kind of work through it in the
Yep.
next 6 months
Yep.
or so and see how things go, if we need to revisit and make
We can
any
change it.
Yeah.
adjustments or whatever, we
We
definitely.
wanted to have something
Yeah.
on the
Right.
table to
And
start
that's-
with.
Right.
That's kind of what I'm getting to is exactly what Leah just said. I mean, I think we're getting really into the weeds here
Yeah.
with it. I think we just gotta let the staff figure out how it works and then we can make adjustments as we go. But I think the outline that we're talking about is pretty fair.
I do have one other question, Skip, if I may, through you. For the primary sign operators, and you probably have maybe had this conversation already, Ron, I don't know if it makes sense to include someone from the town clerk's office, only because they often manage the election dates and kind of the town clerk / treasurer collector for any important information that needs to go out from those 2 offices, someone from community hall, or if you want it to all go through the town administrator office, I don't have a preference, but
So here's why, and we thought a lot about that, we discussed that, and Anita and Beth have a good relationship, so I think that Beth is gonna coordinate that with Anita for those messages. The public safety messages, we wanna have Joe have the opportunity to put things directly on, cause he knows a storm is coming up, he gets the weather report, so we want him to have complete access, and Mike Moriarty to have complete access. But all other departments or boards and commissions will come through my office.
that's fine.
But there's a good working relationship between Anita and Beth already. They deal with so much together that they understand that.
Yeah.
And I
And
expect
Becky
that there'll be
also
election stuff that will go through.
And Becky also with treasurer collector,
We'll
if
go
there's
through Beth,
anything is, okay, that's
Yep.
fine.
Yeah, just so we don't have too many people that have access to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
too many
So we're
hands in the
limiting it
pot
to
are-
3, DPW, us and the public safety.
Yeah.
We can see DPW.
DPW has the
Oh,
ability,
wait.
we're,
Yeah,
I don't
wait,
think
you
it's in
see it
here,
right
but
here.
we're gonna give them the ability to do it by electronically,
You
so.
see what it says right here?
Yeah.
It says primary sign operators, and it doesn't say anything about
Well,
DPW.
primary. DPW is not gonna be a primary operator, because they don't do it often. It really will be only when they have a storm or something. So they're rarely gonna need to change the sign. They're gonna need it depending on weather conditions. So we're gonna train them how to use the sign for those
So
purposes.
why train them? Just have them go to one of these other 4 people.
We could, but see, this happens, sometimes the storm happens on a Saturday, and
Yeah,
my
well,
office
you
staff
got-
isn't
you
here or
got-
whatever.
You got communications directors there 24/7.
Well, they could. I mean, I was just thinking that, storms come up fast and let Joe have that ability for important, because those are public safety kind of issues too, but we could
I'm okay
make Joe go
with
through too,
DPW
but I
having it
was,
for water sewer related issues if there's
Yeah.
big breaks or something as well as storms, but I mean, I just kind of, yeah, I mean, I would maybe
Yeah.
add him as a,
well, we can add them. I mean, the 3 people being trained is my office, obviously communications, dispatch is already trained, and DPW, that's the only training. We just don't wanna have too many hands in the pot, so to speak, here.
Okay.
But I think, we could make Joe go through the process, but again, I
Well,
was thinking of
why
it.
make him learn it? Because he could tell any of these people, like
He
Sue
could,
said.
but it would have to go through,
Yeah.
truthfully, it would have to go through the communications office, because they say, neither my office may not be here on a weekday when all of a
Right,
sudden
the
there's a bad
fire and
storm.
police are there, and you
Yeah,
know,
they could do it
Seth's
through
usually the
dispatch,
lead
yeah.
on a lot of the local emergency stuff.
And I don't know
so-
how, I guess my question there, I would wonder is if Michael is training dispatchers on how to do it. I'd have to ask Michael, because Michael's the expert right now, and I don't know if he's
Oh, if
training.
he's not there, then who else?
He's not
is
there,
there?
who else, yeah. So I'd have to
There's
check
gotta
with
be,
him.
there's just gotta be a safeguard. We gotta have somebody, proofreading and spell checking.
Yeah.
The last thing we want is an embarrassing message up on the town
Yeah,
sign.
we're gonna be careful about that, but yeah, I guess we'll work on that, but like I said, I think Joe's access will be limited for really certain.
Well, the water van got up there pretty quick.
Yeah, with water main breaks or something.
Not the
like
override, but the water van's up.
that. There you go.
And I can't get on my hayfields, and we got a water van. Yep.
All right.
Yeah, motion
I think
to
we-
approve it.
Do we need a motion?
Do you want a motion to approve this, or do you guys wanna hash this thing around for another 2 weeks?
I don't think we need to hash it around. So this is just considered a policy, isn't it?
Yep.
Yep.
I don't think we need a motion
Yeah, I
for it. I
didn't
mean,
think
to
we did.
Lyndon's point, it's just, it's
Just
Ron's,
on record.
this is part of, yeah,
I
it's
mean,
just
do
a
you really
policy.
want a motion?
It truthfully, it can be done either way. It could be a town administrator's policy, or it could be a board of selectmen policy. So it's all up to you guys. I mean, I'm fine with it just being a town administrator policy if you're comfortable with it. But if you choose to make it a board policy, you can do it as well. It can go either way.
I think we
I'm
should
fine
do
with
board
it the way it
policy,
is.
Yeah,
So
I
that
think-
we can change it without Ron's authority.
Right, right.
So I'd like a motion to,
I make a motion that we approve the electric sign usage policy with
correct?
updated discussions, you know, as
Well-
far as the rotations.
So just to be clear, so the rotation is up to 8.
Yeah.
Up to 8 messages at one time to be done according to priority set by the town administrator.
And I think, if I may add also, Carol's suggestion for the veterans returning from active
yeah,
duty
yeah,
service to run, for a week versus the 4 days after return.
Okay?
Agreed.
Do we have a second?
Second,
And just a comment, the good thing about this, the town administrator, be it me or who else in the future, can't change it without you guys knowing about it.
Right,
That's the good
right.
thing about having it be a policy from you guys.
And like, everybody said, it's kinda new, so we're
Yep.
gonna have to play with it and see how it goes.
So, roll call vote, Rochetti?
I,
Benoit, aye.
Whitman, I.
Nichols eye.
Clock eye, vote carries. The override letter to the newspaper, let's have a discussion about that.
So-
okay, if I can, through the chair, I know several of you have had comments on it. I think you said those are directed to Ron. Ron had sent it to the board for comments, and I just figured there was so much back and forth that the only way to really deal with it was to put it on the agenda, so.
So, if I could comment, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
So I've had a lot of people tell me that they don't even know that the question is on the ballot. And there's a lot of people that are just not
Why don't we give the people the time the election is, because it hasn't been on the board and people have forgotten.
which is what we're gonna do. We're gonna put it on the board. I thought it was already there, but we'll put it on the board. So, my intention truthfully in writing this was to try to give mostly a factual explanation of what this was about. I reviewed it in light of some comments by selectmen to see if I went too far with saying, hey, vote for this thing. And there's 2 ways, I guess, it is having reevaluated. There's 2 comments. The title of what I wrote, which implies reason, can you find a reason essentially to vote for the override? And then the last line, which basically says, I'd like you to consider voting for the override. Those are the 2 issues I think, I don't know, maybe someone have other concerns, but those are the 2 I thought that, where I'm saying as town administrator, I suggest that people vote for the override. So I'll give my professional opinion, and then the board of selectmen, I don't care how you guys want to change this if you do. So I'd be real clear, and, I brought forward an override for a question of $500,000. And then when the school committee changed the numbers, I came back to the board of selectmen and asked the board of selectmen to take a vote to vote down or to recommend citizens not vote for that override because the amount was clearly wrong. And it was inappropriate to vote for a $500,000 override question when we didn't need $500,000. And the board of selectmen talked a lot about that and decided not to do that. To date, the Board of Selectmen really hasn't taken a firm position or a vote on the $300,000 override. From my perspective, and I wouldn't even have brought the override to the table if I didn't obviously support it as a town administrator. And the reason I support it is because I would really love to get the town off where we're not using any free cash to balance the budget. I think that's a good fiscal position to be in where we're not using override money. And, you know, when I came to town, one of the things that we had a long discussion about with the selectman who hired me was, you know, how can I help move the town forward and try to improve the town? I will be honest that I don't see cutting the budget by $200,000 moving the town forward. I think in some ways it sets us backwards. And I'll give you a perfect example. You know, one of the things this town likes a lot is the community events, the 4th of July, the truck shows, all the different things. And one of the things that this, not having this money for those, you know, overtime for police department is gonna make it hard for us to do those kind of things because we can't pay for the private duty officers and stuff. I'm concerned about snow and ice and the impact that's gonna be on the future. So from a professional's perspective, and because I have a whole team of people that, you know, are facing difficult cuts with this budget, I do support the override. I purposely wrote it from the town administrator, not from the Board of Selectmen, because it would be my position, not the Board of Selectmen's position on this. But I understand the concerns of members who might be against the override, that they, because I work for you, you don't want me to take that position. I'm okay with that, and I can cut out those 2 lines and take it so I'm not asking people to vote for it. But I do think it's important to get the factual information to the public so they know what they're voting on, that part of it. As to amendments or changes you'd like me to make, I'd definitely consider making those changes. I understand the viewpoint, but I can't say, you know, that I don't support the override because I think it is, in my opinion, and again, this is only my opinion, what I think is in the best interest of the community going forward. But that's going to be an individual choice of every single voter who votes yes or no on this item. It's simply what I think is the town administrator for the town, and I'll leave it at that.
So through the chair.
Go right ahead.
So yeah, I really had a lot of problems with it. I've been very clear, even when I said about the motion with the override, I did not support the override, but it was to give the residents an option. There are a lot of fixed income seniors that are really struggling, that cannot afford a tax increase. You don't live in the town, so you're not gonna be paying more money, and it will make your job much easier to get more money. So yeah, I would love it too if I was a town administrator, but I don't think with the board, because we can go through the board again, but I thought the board was pretty clear that we were doing it, but we did not support increasing taxes. We were doing it because the school was continually going over the 2.5, and we need to give the people an option. But that we weren't saying that, okay, we want you to increase our taxes. And as it was, we cut budgets before they even went to the finance committee. So we're already at a loss. So they're going to get less services, or not quite, or certainly no more services, pay more taxes. We moved a bunch of people over to water and sewer, which I don't even know. Did the commission even consider that?
1.5 people were moved from DPW.
Okay. So did as the Board of Water and Sewer Commission, we didn't consider them moving that staff over there, right?
Just as a Board of Selectmen, but not as a
Okay.
DPW, right?
So isn't that gonna increase water and sewer rates? Because
Good.
now, right, so you're gonna pay more for water and sewer,
Mhm.
you're gonna get less services, and now you wanna increase their taxes.
Mhm.
We need to get the information out there and let them make a choice, but I don't think anybody should be putting a position on there to say, go ahead and pay more taxes so that we can take care of our problems. Because I don't think we're taking care of our problems. And that's my concern about it. Yes, the information has to go out there, the effect it's gonna have on it has to go out there, but I don't think we should be telling anybody who can't afford it to pay more taxes. Because I gotta tell you, there's a lot of seniors on fixed incomes, and there's people that lost jobs and wages through this whole pandemic. That, you know, you look at the census and it looks like, oh great, the town of Rutland has, you know, high wages. Well, no, there's people struggling, there's people hurting that can't afford it, and I don't want to be saying, go pay more taxes for it. That's my position.
So if I could just to respond, so to be clear, and I've said it to you through email, that I totally respect your position. I don't have an argument with your position. You have a right to make the position any way you want. I guess what I would say to you, as you reviewed that letter, and I sent it out to you for this purpose. I wanted you to review it before I sent it out. But as I looked at it, I saw that the title and the last line. Did you have other concerns other than those two?
My problem is recommending it.
Which
I
is-
want the information out there. I just want to say, okay, There's gonna be a vote on the 28th. It's the residents' decision
Okay.
whether they're gonna increase taxes to support these issues. But I don't think we should be telling them what to do.
And through you, Mr. Chair, that's fair. I just want to make clear, because as I reevaluated it based upon the comments that I saw, the only two places I saw that were even towards recommendation is the title itself that said, why should you possibly vote for an override?
Right.
And then the last line that said.
And my
that
problem
could-
is the last line.
Just the last line, or is it, okay.
And I think I've tried to make
So-
that clear to you. That's
So if I remove the last line, are you okay with the title and the way it's other than that?
right, because on the title you're just saying why, and I want them to be
Okay.
informed to know what's gonna happen. But I don't think, because you work for us, you
Thank you.
represent us. And I understand your positioning as a town manager. You say, okay, this would be great for departments if I get more money.
Oh.
But I don't think you should be telling people they should increase their taxes, because I don't know, we can go through the board and say whether I misunderstand, but you certainly have known my position
I certainly have.
from day one.
Certainly have.
So
So
that was-
I
that was my
appreciate that, and
concern.
I'm willing to change that letter. I just want to get it out, because I'd like
But I
to
mean, that's my opinion.
get out.
I'll let
If
rest
the
of board
board's
to
okay
see
with
if they
that
agree
change,
with
I'd
it,
like to
so.
get the letter out so that the public has.
I'm
his
fine
own
with that
say.
change, I think it's great.
Well, through the chair, in the second paragraph, you're telling people that we have run out of the savings, which you have told is the free cash.
Correct.
But then you're talking about using free cash.
Well, we only have 120,000 left, so we have a
So-
little bit left, but not completely.
But that's
We don't have enough to
contradicting.
fund the whole budget like we did in the past.
Right, but that's
It's a very small
contradicting,
part.
saying we've run out of money, but then here's the money that
I
we're
can
gonna
put, we have a
spend.
small amount left, if that would clarify that for you, yeah. But that's because we cannot fund, like last year we did 405 grand, this year we're funding, we originally, as you remember, did 80 grand. The town meeting was an additional 20 put in, but, so it is 100, but I can change that to say that
Maybe
we have very little
continuously
left or whatever.
diminished free
Yeah.
cash.
We
or
have very
something, I
little
don't know.
left.
I feel awkward saying this, but I have rewritten a letter.
Oh.
I don't know if it's something that we could,
You
Go
can
read it.
read it and make a
Go read it.
motion to
it's long,
revise.
it's long.
I'm gonna
I don't
qualify to
wanna
this,
look at the
if-
whole thing.
If the Board of Selectmen wants to rewrite the letter, then I think it probably would have the Board of Selectmen at the end of it,
Exactly.
not my
Ex-
position on it.
Exactly,
And I'm okay with that. If the Board of Selectmen wants to put out the letter instead of me, I'm fine with that.
because I think, to Lyndon's point, and I feel very much the same, I know I'm new to the board, but my whole stance on this is, I don't want a Band-Aid and kick the can down the road. I'd like to let the voters decide however they want to, and then we're gonna spend the next year figuring out what's going on. And, not just having to keep using an override, because as I've heard, once you override and you increase your taxes, they'll never go back down
Oh,
again.
no, it's forever.
So, it's something that I want to, it's something that I said in my campaigning, and I want to make sure that I, follow through with that. It's not completely rewritten. I think it's a little bit more clear, a little bit unbiased. It's the facts and nothing but the facts. But I don't know if really that we want to read the whole thing, or if we could just
Well, you
take it.
Well, we want to get it out, so, I mean, if we can read the whole thing, and then we can make a motion if that's the version we want to go out, or any other version. So, I mean, so.
Well, so I'm just, I'm confused, before we do that. So the letter will be coming from the board and not the town administrator. Is that the intent of this, is to have the letter come from the board?
It wasn't the intent, Mitch, but I can see that, I think the board should stand up and say, this is how we see it. I don't think that you're gonna find anything in here that makes anybody think that it's a yes or no for the board, but then I can't speak for everybody on the board. This is, maybe it was just therapeutic for me to get down what I'm looking at and thinking about. Because, like I said, it can't come from the board if everybody isn't agreeing on it. And I don't know that, I wouldn't want to sit here and listen to a 1.5-page letter and make a decision tonight.
I wonder if we can work on Ron's letter that goes from the town administrator, and then if Carol wants to submit a letter, if any of us want to submit our own letters, we can. I feel like it's important. We
But
don't have a
if-
lot of time.
If
No,
you're
this
gonna
is-
submit a
it's
letter
getting-
on,
It's gotta go out tomorrow.
excuse me, Mitch,
Yeah.
if you're
sorry.
gonna submit a letter on your own, it's not from the select board.
Correct.
Correct.
It's not.
Correct.
Correct.
I mean, we had other members of this board in the past that would do things.
Oh, no,
that
yeah,
were
we'd
not-
have to vote on agreement and that this would be from the board. But, I mean, Carol, is there just parts that you feel strongly about that could be injected into Ron's letter that he may not object to? Like I said, I want people to know the facts. I don't
Yeah.
wanna lead them into telling them to make the decision. I wanna say, okay, the override vote's coming up, if, this is what's gonna happen, this is what we're supposed to do on the town floor anyway, and then everybody just gave up on it, I guess, and said, oh, Paxton's gonna pass it. Because everybody prepared for this big, elaborate, talk and everything, and nothing happened. And, I mean, I'm a little disappointed because Paxton, is hurting like Rutland. And I don't really know what their position is, but Holden has never gone with us and supported us on our position with the school. Paxton has hurt, and we didn't even talk about the fact that these are not revolving revenues for the school. So that wasn't even discussed, so we just know next year it's gonna be another whole big problem.
Can I comment on that? So
Yep.
first of all, Lynn, I agree with you 100%. I spent a massive amount of time preparing for town meeting to answer the kind of questions you're discussing.
Mhm.
And I was shocked that all the research and preparation I did, I get to use any of it because it blew through in like 5 minutes. It was like, I couldn't believe it. But you're absolutely correct. We did not talk about what frankly really annoyed me about the reduction from the school system is they're using all the one-time revenues to fill
Mhm.
that gap. And that's gonna be a problem next year. And I wanted the public to know that that's gonna be a problem next year. So I'm glad you even brought it up tonight. I hope people watch this. Because that's a big problem for next year's school budget, the fact that they used one-time revenues to fill that gap, and it's gonna cause a really big budget deficit for next year on the school side.
Well, I
So
mean,
I guess like through the chair, we're talking about a letter right now, but like Lyndon brought up a really good, several really good points, and I could hear him, even though I'm remote, banging on the desk. So I know that he was passionate about it.
that was my head.
There you go, against the wall, yeah.
All right. So my only concern is, okay, we've known that we haven't managed this properly as a town in the last few years, but we also know that going into this year with the reduction of the school budget, and Lyndon's right, using one-time revenues on the school side, that we got that number down to like something like 3.6, 3.8%. Ron, that's the number we looked at town meeting.
Yeah,
it is-
it went from 961 to 400 and something, a
And-
huge difference.
Right. So, but you had also looked at the last 6 or 7 years. That's the lowest. That's the lowest percentage it's been in the last 6 or 7 years. So, I skew more towards Lyndon on this, where I'm not going to be in favor of increasing taxes in any way, shape, or form. But at some point, as a board, we have to have a conversation about what priorities are for town services, because we know that on average, that ask from the school district is going to be 3 or 4% higher than what we got away with this year. So this could be an exacerbated problem next year, and we still haven't addressed our crumbling capital needs or infrastructure. So I'm fine with like the letter itself. Carol, she had some additions to it. If we want to go through it tonight, we can. I'm more, of the mindset of send everything to Ron, and then Ron can send it back out. And if there's any issues, there's issues, and if not, he can send it off. But I also am hesitant to send anything as a board at this point, because I know that Karen and FinCom and the town administrator work directly with putting this budget together. And I want to make sure that FinCom is okay with whatever we send out regarding the budget and the impact, because they did all the legwork to get to this point. And they know the ins and outs, I think, better than we do in that process.
So, to respond, to you, Mr. Chairman, this, in order to get in the newspaper to be prepared for the 28th, it needs to go
By
tomorrow.
Wednesday.
To get it out,
Yeah.
at the Wednesday at the latest in the morning. We've got to get it out. Now, I run this by the finance chair to see if the chair is, this is all information effectively, the dollar numbers and stuff are from FinCom. It's what we've talked on the budget, so the numbers are all correct. FinCom, I don't want to say they haven't taken a vote, but the members seem more inclined to be supportive of the override, but they haven't voted it either. I have no problem with the comments that Linda made in terms of that last line, and I'm okay in changing it and signing off on it. If the board decides they want to make significant changes then to this, though, then I think the board should adopt it as a selectman's letter if they want to make significant changes, because then it becomes, in my mind, it becomes more of their position than mine. But that's up to the board. But I do think we don't have time to have a FinCom vote on this and everything else. If we want to get information out to the
Right.
public, it needs to go and be approved tonight in some form, whatever the Board of Selectmen wants it to be.
could then, through the chair, I would ask that the title be reworked, and instead of saying in the second paragraph, last line, that we no longer, that we've run out, just that we have diminished, or the
Free cash.
town's free cash has
Mhm.
diminished, to the point where we can no longer sustain the school budget, and then remove completely the last line.
Did you want to change the original title at all? Are you okay with the original title?
Why should Rutland voters consider voting for a Proposition 2.5 override?
Are you okay with that?
Well, yeah, it's just the questioning the fact of why they should, and you're gonna give the facts. I mean, I don't see that as leading. Does anybody else see that as
No, I
leading
don't
or
see
anything? I mean, I think it just asks the question, like, okay, what does this mean to me?
I take it as it gives you something to think about
Right.
versus
Yeah.
just like you know, we know as soon as, for some people, as soon as they hear override, it's going to be a yes or no, more no than a yes.
Yeah,
But I think that this is, you know, why should you pause and at least think about it,
Right.
like versus just
and
have
it
that.
says considers. It doesn't say why.
Doesn't
Why
say
should
vote.
Rutland voters vote for 2.5?
Right.
So at least it's open and it's informative. And, you know, I'm sure, Carol, that maybe there's some other points you may have some minor, at least even some that may be some minor. But I had the problem with
The last line.
with our discussions,
Mm-hmm.
the last line. I
The-
just did not think we should lead people in to tell them to make a
I
decision.
agree.
So if that's the only changes, I'm happy to make those changes and put it out tomorrow to the papers. If that's all you have, Carol.
Yep.
You have some other little minor things, I don't even mind working with you on that, but those changes I can
Yep.
deal with and take care of
That's
tomorrow.
good.
Yeah, I'm okay with the changes. I do think that this is going to be similar to what Carol said, that the town's going to have a real reckoning, because we as a town aren't only in control of the school budget. There's 5 other towns that are in control of the school budget. And we are continuing to decimate town services year after year after year. And maybe that means that we don't need a lot of our town services, and because we aren't able to pay for them, and because we aren't only in control of our town budget. And so I think that as this upcoming year, we're going to have do some real soul searching as a town, as select board, and I hope with FinCom also, and the other boards and commissions and our department heads, because I don't see how this is a sustainable way forward, and I don't think that the town side is severely and significantly financially mismanaged. I think the mismanagement has been the continual passage of the school budget without funding, and some of that is we don't have the say, because even if Rutland votes it down and the 4 other towns vote for it, then yes. So I think that we're going to have a very significant and severe reckoning. We had the input from the state financial forecast. This isn't a problem going away. We are in the red in the foreseeable future based on the state forecast. So we're going to have to do some real reckoning. So I just think that we all need to be aware of that and have that commitment.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you want to do that in the form of a motion to approve it as amended, or do you just want me to do it as amended? I don't know, whatever you're
Motion
comfortable with, you
to
guys.
approve as amended, if I could get
So moved.
Whitman seconds.
roll call vote. Richardy,
Aye.
Benoit, aye?
Whitman, aye.
Nichols eye.
motion passed.
Thank you, Ron.
You're welcome.
So, this is on your ballpark again, Mitch, the proclamation of the historic soldier Rutland resident.
Yeah, so I sent out a couple articles to you folks for review through Beth. We did have this is something I think we had started on, and Jeff is obviously much better at this than all of us are right now with the town morale and things like that. I am still working with the wife to get some additional information about service record, but we did have a citizen of Rutland, stop and save a pedestrian's life when hit by a vehicle. Individual's done 5 tours overseas in service to the country, and folks like that, we've handed out keys to the town to Boy Scouts and Eagle Scouts in the past. We started doing that, and I think we've all been good about recognizing the efforts, particularly during COVID, of our department heads and our staff. I think we need to start looking to you know, some of the citizens we have that have gone above and beyond, particularly over this last year. And so I guess, you know, in putting it together and working to put it together with the family, and working with Ron's office to see what is an appropriate long-term solution for a key to the town or something similar like that, whether it's a plaque or whatever. I just wanted a vote of approval before moving forward from the board to do that, and then perhaps leave it on the agenda for next time to actually present it.
So moved. Or do you need to be more specific? You just motion to.
I guess we could just make a motion to move forward with it.
Let's just do a motion to move forward. I don't think we need a vote.
Right.
Now, we'll work with them on whatever the format is.
I make that motion if move forward.
Well, everybody's in agree of it, so we're just gonna move forward. Is it okay, Mitch?
Oh, so
Yeah,
you
that's
need
fine.
Okay.
If I could, through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna make a
Yep.
comment that's related to this but different. So, but this I think is the perfect time. Selectman Benoit sent me, or I guess shared an email with me today that I found very fascinating that I shared on Facebook myself today. But in the same thing, you know, she sent me an article about a gentleman who is a brigadier general who grew up in Rutland. And I believe he's been in, I don't know, what's the Air Force, because he's in favor of flying planes and everything else, but a really significant military person who is a Rutland resident. And it was, I think, a landmark article about his contributions and, you know, his pride of being from Rutland. So I shared it on my Facebook page. I would encourage all of you to share it, because it was really an impressive little article about it. And I thank you for sending that to me, but it was pretty cool to see that. I don't know if any other members seen it or not, but
Yeah, it's been on several different.
it's been different sites, yeah. So I just wanted to comment about that, because I didn't know it. I was pretty impressed by it, and I just thought it was a really neat thing to say, you know. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Proclamation for, renewal of Zoom contract. Do we want to renew it or do away with it?
So, Mr. Chairman, just a comment about that. The Cable TV, Peter Crane and Cable has reached out to me. They really believe that it's been easier for them to record meetings and everything and putting them up on YouTube and everything else. So, as you know, the cable budget actually has plenty of money in it. It's from the charter for paying for it. So they want to incorporate the cost of these Zoom licenses into their account. I think it's perfectly logical to do that, and they love it, and we can still do Zoom meetings for as long as the board chooses to do them, and it definitely makes it easier for them to deal with recording and playing the clips of meetings, so.
If I
Do we
may,
need a,
sorry,
through the chair, do we need a motion for that? Just to
We're
have
gonna
them-
get one. Yes, we are.
I have a couple questions, if I may, through the chair.
Sure.
Are these 1-year licenses? Is that, and was it for all three? Because the town currently has 3
Yep.
Zoom accounts, right?
It's-
And so it would be
It's
an
all three.
extension of all 3 for
That's
1 more year.
my intention of it, yes. And then frankly, that's small dollars for them. I think it's not that big of money, and I think the cable company has it. I think it's a perfect use for them. They have a significant surplus as well. So.
I think for me personally, if I may, through the chair, it makes sense, especially given that we're still in this transition period of COVID for at least for the next year, to kind of give us that opportunity and option to keep it as accessible for everyone, but also if there's ever any exposures or anything among any of the boards and commissions, that we have ways to still function. And
I will say this to you, through you, Mr. Chairman. There's a couple of big benefits we found it too. I've been able to meet through Zoom with town managers in the area, school committee people. I've been able to meet with a lot of outside Rutland people in a much easier format, and to be able to see people is just makes an addition to that meeting. So I think it's been a huge asset in that respect too. So I think it's been good all the way around. I've used it in countless internal meetings as well.
It's a motion to renew the Zoom contracts as
Second?
presented.
No, wait a minute. We want it a little different than that.
What do you need?
We want it so that the cable people are paying for it and not the money where it's being paid for.
Okay, so I'll amend my motion to renew the Zoom contract pending cable access funding pay for the renewal.
Now a second.
Roll call vote. Rushetti,
City, aye.
Benoit, aye?
Whitman, I.
Nichols eye?
motion passion, motion carries.
And thanks to Cable for continuing that also. I know it's beneficial for them, but I think it's beneficial for everyone, so, thank you.
Milk room alcoholic common vic license revision. Go ahead, Ron.
So, we've already issued them a common vic license. One of the conditions, they wanted from the very beginning to include a deck that is in the back of their property. We wouldn't do that because the deck had not been approved by the building inspector. Since then, the building inspector, the changes have been made so that they can utilize the deck, for seating. So that's the only change to the common vic license, it'll be rewritten just to add that deck provision. And actually, you see that in the license that's in your package. But we did not feel comfortable issuing that license, even saying that when the deck was approved, we wanted the deck to be approved first before we issued the license. It's a safety measure, and we just felt important, but that's the only change to the vic license.
Yeah, but it doesn't say that on here.
Yes, it does. It says the deck in hand, this paragraph, right, something about the deck.
Deck area per builder's inspection on April
Yep.
12th on.
Does the deck have exterior access, or it must, right, to have?
It has, I think it has
Egress.
both, but I think it's okay, I had a conversation this morning about that. You can't have internal seating for customers in the interior, what I would call the restaurant part, they can't sit in there. But I think it's perfectly fine to pass through the area to get to the deck, so I think it can be done either way, because the building requirement is for, like, permanent seating inside.
And it doesn't have to. There's an access from the building, and then there's 2 stairways on
From
either
the
side
outside,
of the deck.
yeah.
So you can actually come
Both
from
ways.
the field up onto the deck, or even through the facility.
Right, but that's, it can go both ways, because
Yeah.
going through the building is not a problem, because you're not
Right.
permanently sitting down and stuff. That's the point I was trying to make, so.
Well, Lyndon, it sounds like you have a pretty accurate. I mean,
I've
how much
seen
time
it.
how much time do you spend over there, Lyndon? Jeez, you know.
Just
no, I'm
investigating.
But I'd rather
That was
be
my-
down,
that's right.
be down with the bison myself, but that's okay.
doing his
There you go.
homework. My only the only reason I asked the question is because I know that Seth was in here before, and there were concerns about the inside, and I want to make sure that the town is covered from a liability perspective. From that, but Ron, it sounds like you poked into that, and that should be.
Yeah,
all
I'm
right.
comfortable with that. The big issue with that building is, the biggest issue on top of the building code was really the fire code there. The
Yep.
requirement is for a sprinkler system. It's extremely expensive to put that in, and I understand the owner's reluctance, because he doesn't have the funding to do that. But I think in the future, he'd really love to expand it, but he just has to meet the code requirements. But I
Yep.
think it's perfectly okay that he can put people on the deck, now that the deck has been certified and approved by the building inspector
I mean, unless you think a field trip by the board is necessary prior to
and the town
approval.
administrator.
Not
Yeah.
tonight.
All right.
Well, no, Lyndon, I was going to say if we sign off on it, you can hand deliver it.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Through the chair, I have a question.
Sure.
Are we, in my ignorance in this, are we ADA compliant with new, like a restaurant?
Yes, a good
Is
question.
there any way that
Good
somebody
question.
that needs
It's,
access?
I don't think it's not like a town building, so the accessibility is a little different. But it is a business, and there is handicap parking, but I don't think they have the same stringent requirements as the town buildings do.
I think they
That-
can still
the-
be served at
The
the
building,
field.
the building inspector shouldn't be approving it if it's not meeting ADA requirements for a private business. But they don't have the same requirements as these town buildings do.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
not all the town buildings are either.
Carol, I specifically
like
haven't
to
looked
be
at that, but I will ask them about it tomorrow.
Yeah.
I suspect that it's okay the way it is, because they would have approved it, but I'll double check with them tomorrow to find out. It's a good question, I
I'm
just,
just
I don't know.
Yeah.
becoming very conscious of.
Well, it's very
ADAs.
difficult on these ag facilities, these type of, because a lot of farm industries and stuff, they can't possibly make everything accessible necessarily, so that'd be pretty tough, because a lot of, people are out in fields and things, and
Yeah. All right. Well, if we're satisfied that everything's been met, and Seth is happy and Dave is happy, I'll go ahead and make a motion. I mean, do we need a motion just to re-sign this? Is
you
that?
better hurry up, because I think people are starting to sign it, so you better make a motion.
All right then. I leave. It's just when the cat's away, the mice will play. Sign all the stuff.
I didn't sign it yet. I
All
was on
right.
the field trip.
I'm holding it.
I'll make a motion that we re-sign, the common vic license for Milk Room Brewery, with the added addition of the deck.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Rochetti?
Aye.
Benoit, aye?
Whitman, I.
Nichols, eye.
Motion carries.
All right.
So the next item is appointments and reappointments of boards and commissions.
So I have a question through the chair.
Yes, sir.
We have a list that I reviewed. We have expressed interest, and I know we have a lot of folks that need to be reappointed. There are some on there that I know that we've received that aren't on the list, but we don't have on the list whether or not they've been recommended by the chairs in most instances. I know that the 300th we do, but I want to see if we have that, because that is in our appointment policy, that we make sure that we get that information as well, particularly when there's open seats, more than one open seat on a board, and you have more than one candidate looking for that open seat. So,
Ron?
So through you, Mr. Chairman, so, you know, I had that discussion, when I first got the original list here, it had, you know, question marks with, interest on it, and I was like, what is that all about? If these people said that they want to be on this board or not, it's my understanding that all the people that are on this list, the ones that are on the list for tonight, have all, this all came from the chairs of the various boards and commissions, that they've checked with these people and that they want to be on it, and that the board and chairs are aware of this, and that's how this list came forward. That was my understanding of it, because when I originally saw it, I was kind of confused by the word interest with the question mark. But in redoing this with Beth, these all came from the chairs of the boards and commissions.
Yeah, I do see a lot of emails in here mentioned and some
Yep.
letters and stuff.
yeah, I just want to make sure that we got our bases covered there.
That was the way it was
Um,
explained to me from the questions, Mitch, because I asked that same question to them.
Got it.
And they've been working both with Beth and Anita on this. So there's been a lot of effort by both Anita and Beth to follow through and make this happen. Now, the reason why this isn't a full list is because there are other boards and commissions that they're still working on, that they haven't got, you know, absolute people that want to be on and stuff.
Yeah, I know, for example, like in meeting with CIPC, that there were folks that applied to be re-upped, and I think Harry's just been out. I think he's been sick, so we don't have anything from him. And a couple of the other boards that I know that they had similar situations.
Yep.
So I know that Beth has been working to reach out to the board chairs and get everything, but
Yep.
yeah, we got to make sure. This lags every year, and we got to be more punctual, I think, with some of this stuff.
Well, the one group that's not on here, it was sort of interesting because the chair of the finance committee is on here. I know she had called me to talk to me about it, and then she got the answer through Beth, and we weren't sure. But Anita corrected us today. The moderator makes appointments to the finance committee,
Yes.
but there is a requirement that the board of selectmen ratify them.
Yep.
So that's going to be at the next board meeting. I actually put that bylaw in the package for the members to look at because we wanted to verify what that process was.
So how do you people want to handle it? You want to do it as a slate, or you want to do?
I mean,
individual?
if all of this represents, we have from the appointment and the chair. It doesn't look like we have any contested seats. I would rather just go ahead and reappoint or make appointments as a slate for what we have in front of us.
So
For
make
everyone
that
to get.
motion.
Well, just for clarification on like the cable, was that just like realigning the expirations of the members or something? Those little
Yeah, the cable one, they all have 1-year terms as of right now, and they don't like that. They want them to be done on a staggered term, so that is new, that they would be appointed in this stagger and the way it's set up. Just so everybody knows, all these terms, all these appointments expire on June 30th, and they all start, so they're 3-year, 2-year, 1-year terms, all start effective July 1st.
And then also through the chair.
Yep.
Now, isn't there a bylaw in place now that if somebody on a board misses so many meetings, they're no longer on the board?
Yeah, we actually discussed that during our finance committee, so yes, that is in place.
Okay, so who's
I'm not-
tracking that?
So,
The board chairs track that.
yeah, they would advise us if they feel somebody should be removed or not attending the meetings and stuff.
But they shouldn't, well, I'm
but-
sorry, through the chair, but I mean, they shouldn't just reviewing whether they should be removed or not. They either make the meetings or they don't. If they're not making meetings, they should be removed. So I think there should be some follow-up, because I think there are committees where people just don't go, and if people aren't going, there may be other interest in it, and, you know, I just wanna know what the follow-up is on that, because that was my understanding, and I think there are some issues where people aren't going, and
Yeah.
that needs to be followed up.
I could send a letter out to other chairs asking them that question, if they have members that have not shown up for 5 meetings, that the process is to notify my assistant to take care of that.
Right, and
So I
then,
can
and,
send
that
and
email
then
out to-
move forward for replacement
Yeah.
of some kind, yeah.
Yep,
Thank
I
you.
can,
Through the chair, Earthworks Board, it says Glenn Coppola, but then it says Agricultural Commission next to it. What is the actual board that he's wishing to serve on?
So, if I may, through the chair, the Earthworks Board has representation from a bunch of the different boards and commissions. So I
So
think,
he would be representing on behalf of agriculture?
yes, and then based
Yep.
on the communication that we got through Beth today in our packet, it also says BOH with a question mark. That means that they don't have, the Earthworks Board does not yet have a representative from the Board of Health
Okay, got it.
nominated.
Yeah.
So that's, I had the same question as you, Mitch. So that's how I know the answer.
Okay, that
and-
makes total sense.
Through the chair, if I may. I wonder if there's a way that we can have a comprehensive list of, because I know there's a few that still have opening vacancies. If we can have a comprehensive list somehow, I think in just looking through this, Concom has a couple openings, and I'm not sure. I haven't gone through all the boards and commissions on the website and matched up
I
terms.
thought that's where
and-
they were, I thought they already had that on the website, but I'll check and find out.
But if we can have it all kind of pulled together, in the past, we've kind of had like an Excel sheet with just like at least the terms that are expiring, or if there's a reappointment or something.
Yeah, that would be, like, this is nice, it's backup documents, but it would be nice to have a spreadsheet to know exactly what the flow is, because we're
All right,
just kinda
so
digging
wh-
through, so.
Can I make a suggestion then? Because I think then, to Leah's point, like I'm fine with the folks here in the chair recommendations, but to have it presented in a more comprehensive and simplistic manner, and we'll put this on the next agenda, simply because I know I've heard from several board chairs about other reappointments that didn't make this list, and if we can work over the next 2 weeks, I think we can get something put together that's probably a lot more comprehensive than kind of what's in front of us.
I'm sorry, Ron, through the chair, you said by July 1st, is that the deadline to get these all placed?
Well, July,
Does-
the way it usually works, and I guess I can look at it closer, is usually that the board survives until the next appointment, till they're appointed
Right.
again.
Okay, so there isn't like a
So no,
drop
if you
dead date,
lasted
okay.
till, if they were until June 30th, they would still be there effective, the members, until they were a new appointment came
All right,
in.
I just didn't wanna leave them hanging without somebody, because.
That's normally the way it's done, yep.
Thank you.
I have a question for the chair. I don't know that we can do this as a slate. There's no word about interest from any of the insurance advisory committee, so there
Well,
seems
those are
to
the ones that not.
Those are mandated,
Not that there's not a,
right? I mean, like you have your certain positions are we talking about,
So on the second page, Insurance Advisory Committee, it says reappoint all, question mark, no word about interest from any. So do they not maybe want to be on it if they haven't expressed interest?
So she sent out a letter.
oh, I see what you're saying, yep, yep.
So she sent out a letter to all the members, Rebecca did, and none of them kind of responded back. That does, usually what happens, truthfully, in a lot of these cases, they're just automatically reappointed, and if they don't want to serve on, they don't show up at the meeting, then we just ask for the resignation. So that's a lot of times these one. And this particular one, only one member responded, and really the letter was more of a concern as to, we made a recommendation, the Board of Selectmen didn't take that recommendation, that had to do with a changing of the deductible on health insurance plans.
Yeah.
The board voted in a different way than what was recommended, but other than that, it seems that the board, is just gonna continue to go forward. I don't know what the one member was complaining about it is going to do, but I guess I would suggest that you reappoint him if somebody decides they don't wanna come, to let us know, but
I mean, I
I
can.
expect that they're
through
gonna
the chair,
continue.
I can see their frustration, that they sit, they have discussions, they have meetings, they make recommendations, and then we just say what we want. So, I mean,
Yeah, but it-
I wanna make sure they feel validated
So,
that the work that they do, so, I can see there can be some
Right.
concern, frustration there.
in your, through you, Mr. Chairman, you're absolutely correct, Lennon. As a matter of fact, the person that sent a letter, Rebecca responded back to that letter saying, that she checked the history of it, in 4 or 6 years, they followed the recommendation. One year they didn't, but it was a very minor dental kind of change.
Yeah.
This has been the only real significant time where the board took an action different than them. But it was because of the budget deficit, it was
Yeah.
a significant reason. But overall, and what we said, the response that Becky said was very clearly, because she bounced off the reply to me, to be honest with you. Her response is that we really did get your opinion. We expressed your opinion to the Board of Selectmen, which is the point of that committee. Now, the Board of Selectmen gets to do what they want, but it wasn't, and the concern that was expressed was, you don't care about the employees. But if you remember, the reason why we did this is we were
Right.
trying to protect employees.
Right.
So the person, I don't think, saw the bigger picture, that the board was really trying to protect, not losing anybody to layoffs and all that kind of stuff. So I agree with you, I understand the frustration, but sometimes difficult decisions have to be made.
And through the chair, yeah, I mean, I understand that, and I appreciate the fact of why it had to be
Yeah.
done, but I also kind of could see the frustration of them going through a lot of work and things not going through, so.
Yeah, but it
Becky
was
did
only
respond.
one person.
I think that one person spoke.
Yeah,
The
but
other
only
people-
one person was
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah, that was
Oh,
the
okay.
whole story.
Through the chair, if I may, I don't see the whole sheet with everything that's listing the insurance advisories not being interested in stuff, but I think we have so are you suggesting, Mitch or Skip, that we
We're gonna postpone this for 2 weeks.
all appointments,
all
and because we
appointments,
do
yeah.
have some that we could appoint tonight, and in the past, I know sometimes we've held everything, and sometimes we have appointed
We could
as they
just,
come
we're
in.
gonna hold the
Okay.
whole
This-
thing.
Yeah, I would just, like, we get it in a spreadsheet, we'll get all the backup documentation. We'll take the 2 weeks and get to hear from all of the chairs, because again, I know that there's people, and they're not contested seats, there's just people that aren't on the list, and we're gonna have to be spending time on this every week unless we just get everything together. So I'd just rather see it all put together and we can just take it, if that's the way the board wants to go with it.
Sounds good to me, because I mean, you know, you don't want people saying, well, why did you appoint theirs and not mine?
Yeah, right, we should just hold it.
Okay.
Okay, gonna move on to the correspondence of the letter of intent to sell property. This is 61A property?
Yeah, this really doesn't require any action, it's really just informational in nature. I actually wanted to follow up on this a little bit because, as you know, you guys are all used to having to vote not to buy 61A property when these properties go up for sale. What's different about this is it's not coming off of 61, it's just being transferred to one owner to another. So there is no right to purchase that property, and
yes.
it was
It's
checked by
it's changing names.
the assessor's department. They checked with their expert on this issue, and she told us and sent me an email back today saying, no, because it's only a change of ownership and it's not leaving 61A, that the town does not have a right to buy it unless it actually is leaving 61A. That was what the expert in the assessor's office told me.
Okay.
I'm just telling you what she told me.
Yeah, I know
I'm
it.
not an expert in this, but that's what I was told. And I did follow up on that because I was concerned about it, but do you think there's, Mr. Chairman, you think there's some other provision that maybe have to look at, or?
Through the chair, you might want to check with the state, and make sure we're looking at it
Yeah,
clearly, but.
because we got into a little bit of problem that all the boards and committees didn't get a chance to say, no, they didn't want that piece of property. And, yeah,
Well, it's not, okay.
it's gotta go through
Yeah.
all
We
the.
still, yeah, we still should probably send it to the boards and commissions. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you know, Skip and Lyndon, I don't know how much you know about farming, but, you
Who
know,
doesn't know anything?
Well, I guess I'm a little confused because if the assessor's letter to me was correct in saying that the town couldn't buy it if it wanted to, why would we send it to the boards and commissions asking if they want it? Because it was explained to me that we can't
Through
even.
the chair, I just want to make sure that they're clear on the state regulations from 61A. I mean,
Yes,
Okay, I mean, I just don't want to put it to the boards and commissions if they don't have
Well,
an
only-
opportunity to even consider it.
right,
I mean, I can check with the state and
Check
find
with-
out.
that would be good. That'd be
Okay.
the best way. It's
because
coming-
I mean, like, why are they filling it out? If it's not a problem,
Yeah,
why are they filling out the form?
Well, they were told by the assessor's
Just a
office,
sale.
they were told by the assessor's office that they had to fill out the form.
Right, so if they have to fill
That's
out
why
the
they were
form,
told they
somebody's
would
gotta
do it.
review it, right?
all right, no, we just gotta get clarification with the state.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
we're
an
gonna make
easy,
sure the
and we
state-
have plenty of time to do it,
Okay.
because we have, you know, stipulations in 61A. So I think we just clarify with the state, and then we have to inform the boards, we inform the boards and go through the regular process.
Yeah, I was gonna say, looking at this, if I may, Skip,
Yep.
it looks like the letter of intent to sell was already sent to not all, to some of the boards and commissions in town, but
It didn't,
Um,
it didn't come to Concom, I can tell you that.
I was gonna say, but I don't see AgCom or CONCOM on here. And so, I know in the past that those have been two that we've asked also. I think there's been a couple others. So if the state says that we do have an opportunity to weigh in, then I just would like, as you guys have said, to make sure that,
Yeah, I will both send you a copy of what I got from the Assessor's Department, and I'll follow up and find out for the state to make sure. So I'll give you both, so you can see why I'm thinking the way I'm thinking, and you'll also see what the state says about it.
Did you want this signed also?
How's that? You guys have to sign the new,
We did, the new one.
particular one, yeah.
The new one, but this is the paperwork.
that's the copy.
No, if you just have to sign the actual one, we're good.
You
Like
talking
we
about
got
the
the new,
certificate, like,
Yeah.
for the, yeah, it's
for
right.
the
Yeah,
Millbury,
okay.
if you sign that, you're good.
Yeah.
No, I actually printed out that letter from the assessors and I left it on the copier.
Okay. Do we wanna go back to 133, or do we wanna, what would we like to do with that?
Well, there's also the issue of, we had put off the reorg, and we have to reorg. I thought it would be on this agenda. So I'm wondering if we can take that under other business, or if we wanna put it on for the first item under the next agenda. I'm up for whatever the board wants to do with it, but it was my intent to have it on this agenda to do, and I'm sorry, I just didn't make it, when I looked at Beth's version.
Personally, Mitch, I think we should put it on the next agenda, only because it's not on here and you don't need to get bit and I don't wanna get bit and nobody else wants to get bit.
Or we can have a special meeting during the week if the board wants to so choose, we can do it anytime. I just wanna get it done. I was trying to do it before town meeting, but,
So how's this board feel? Wanna do it tonight, or you, what?
I'd rather wait till it's on an agenda for, like a posted agenda.
Person, but-
So would you do a quick special meeting for it, or would you wanna just hold it till the next meeting?
If Mitch is anxious for us to do it, we can schedule a meeting.
no, I'm just trying to be responsible.
Right,
Like,
I mean,
I don't
we
want
can either do
the
a special
appearance.
meeting and do it, or we can do it the very first thing at the next meeting.
Is- Okay.
So that the board's reorganized and then the meeting continues after, once we've set the board.
Is that okay by you, Mitch?
It's fine by me, I'm just trying to do the right thing by the board. I just don't want the
Okay.
board thinking that I'm gonna, in the next 2 weeks, declare like, myself as Il Duce and start marching around Rutland, but, you know, I just think that we need to get it taken care of, and I wanted to, usually we take care of it, you know, earlier, but town meeting got moved, and, the board wanted to move it till after town meeting, but
So that'll be the first thing on the agenda for the next meeting, Mitch.
I feel more comfortable it be on a public listed,
Posted.
posted, yeah.
yeah, I apologize. I did send that to be on tonight's agenda, but I know that with everything else that went on, it probably didn't make it, so.
Excuse me, shouldn't your daughter be in bed?
No, she's got 20 minutes left
All
to
right.
participate in this meeting before she goes to bed.
All right. She's learning about like local,
Local policy.
government, yeah.
Yeah.
Do we wanna do
This is
this
advisor.
TA review comments, or we wanna hold this to a different time? What I would like to do, and it's probably not procedurally correct, I would like to sit and talk with Ron as a group, not televised, so we can air our opinions without offending everybody in town and Ron and everybody else.
We can't do that because that's an open meeting violation.
Well, that's where I don't know,
I guess I'm a little unclear on this whole process because we all sent in comments and evaluations. So what was the thought? Will you just sit here and will we review what we sent, or Ron responds
So,
to some comments, or do I mean
what-
if we sat here and went through all of our reviews, we'd be here all night.
Or was there like a
That's-
compilation
Yeah.
of kind of consistent themes, or I don't
Well,
know.
maybe then we should have it at the milk room, Lyndon, as a special meeting. No, but I think the intent and what the other communities do and what we did with Mike, and we know this is only Ron's 6-month evaluation, and we had kind of negotiated these extra touch-in points, during the hiring process. Our annual review, you do go around the board and you provide feedback as to not every single score you gave in every category, but like general, if you want to talk about general overlaying themes, to provide some direction to Ron. I've also seen that in city manager forms of government too with councils. They do that and it's all publicly done. But I'm gonna leave it up to the board. I mean, if the board, I know that every member of the board, with the exception of Carol, because she's new, and I think I told Carol to make her own decision on it, but I felt that she probably thought she needed a little bit more time. Sent something to Ron and had a conversation with Ron. If we wanted to wait to do the public thing until the annual, the 12-month mark, which would be sometime in November, then we could do it then. I'll just leave it up to the board, but it usually is a public process, where we kind of go back and forth with the town administrator. And it helps goal set too. So it's really up to the board how they want to handle it.
Through the chair, I mean, if you look at the mid-year review, I mean, because I know you talked about scoring, it didn't seem scoring was appropriate because it's really supposed to be a discussion of where he's at, and especially if he's going to fail something, we needed to bring it to his attention immediately, and to just have a discussion in all the different areas of where we would have concerns or see improvements or highlights or whatever. So, like I said, I didn't really know how this was going to play out and how extensive we would get into looking at it. I mean, I know Ron got all of our comments to review. Mitch, you got copies of them. Did you review the responses?
I did. I reviewed everything that I received from everyone.
So you got to see all the reviews, so you know where everybody stands on everything.
Well, and that's why we need to, in my opinion, we should have an open discussion about the topic, even if we don't go through every single thing, simply because, I get CC'd when something gets sent, but I can't obviously respond to anyone or do anything like that for record keeping. And to be honest, I didn't go through, I just, I know Lee and Linda, you sent emails, I didn't go through anything in depth. I just took a look to make sure it was complete and then, just had Ron and Beth file it. But we really should, I think, even if it's not to go over what was specifically submitted, I think now that we're returning to a semblance of normal municipal government, meet and go over goals and objectives, and some of that can be woven into that. But again, it's up to the board as to what they want to do with it. Ron is the board's employee, and we do have a more in-depth review at the year mark. But again, I knew that the board at the time, when Ron was hired, wanted more frequent check-ins, particularly given the global situation we were in on that review process.
Right, so I mean, I do think there has to be some kind of discussion, and for example, you asked that Jeff send in comments, so I don't know, that you didn't send in
Not to
comments?
me, no.
Jeff never responded, so we never got any.
I did not receive anything from Jeff. I could reach back out to Jeff.
I was gonna say, did he get the evaluation form? Because I'm not sure if he was on the email originally or if it was just the 5 of us.
Yeah, this came
So I'm
up,
not sure.
if you recall, Leah, you asked about it, and I said, oh, shoot, I don't know if Jeff got that, and I did forward it along to him.
Okay.
So yeah, I know that he's just been busy with the other committees and everything, and I'll just check back in with him.
So I mean, my feeling personally is I don't need to go through every little single detail, but there's gonna be specific areas that I think we'll need to discuss about what we as a board expect, or the kind of way of communication, or the kind of leadership, or what we see, way things are going and stuff. So I think we have to have some kind of a discussion, but not to the point where we sit down and go through every single thing,
I think it was helpful, and this was because it was a year review when we did Mike's.
It was like a 18-month review, yeah.
Right. It was a little bit delayed, but was having a compilation of kind of, obviously it was the scoring, but I don't think we need to weigh so much on the scoring for a mid-year review because it's really hard to do the actual scoring. But if
Right.
there's underlying themes that, this theme came up, this is, you know, Ron's awesome at this consistently, then that's great. And there's, you know, like this is an underlying theme of ways to like an area for improvement or a priority for the next 6 months or whatever it may be. And I think to Mitch's point, a lot of that comes in with that goal setting that this board has not done, and I find very helpful.
Yeah.
Like an intentional goal setting as a board. Yeah.
I'm sorry, just so I can respond, you're talking about goal setting for the board, not for me, because we did do goals and objectives for me.
Correct.
You're talking about goal setting for the board that you guys discussed. Okay.
Correct. And then how that kind of feeds into that we're also making sure we're looking at your performance in the context of our goals and your goals. Like
Okay, so, through you, Mr. Chairman.
Mhm.
So I've had an opportunity to read the 3 reviews that I've gotten from the people, and I've looked at them pretty thoroughly, because I look at them as opportunities to grow and learn. And truthfully, it's always difficult for me because somebody really likes me, somebody thinks I'm okay, somebody thinks I'm not so good. You know, it's very hard to figure out why I'm different among different candidates. But I look at the negatives that I get as a way, okay, what do I need to do better? That's how I look at it. So, you know, the way I understood it when I was hired is that we were going to have kind of a casual check-in on a quarterly basis, and the full review would be done. So I agree with Lyndon, and I don't think we need to do a thorough look at every item. If there's certain key areas that you think that I'm not doing as well as you'd like, and frankly, I don't want this to sound like it's, you know, horrible or great either way, but just a general conversation as to areas where, hey, you know what, for instance, I think you should work more as a team, and I'm not seeing that. How can we make it better to work as a team? Those are the kind of conversations I would love to have. And, you know, I'm not going to lie to you, this 6 months, in my opinion, has been very, very difficult with the COVID thing, because you can't communicate in the normal ways, and communicate through email or even, you know, through the web stuff is not the same, and your messages is unclear. So I'm happy to have that kind of casual conversation and how I can learn, improve, and meet your needs. Because like I think I'm overwhelming you with material sometimes. I feel like I'm sending you way too much, and some of you might think, well, I still want more, and others are like, shut up, will you? So I'd like to hear from you, kind of what you think of. Do you feel like I'm working really hard to give you a lot of information, but is it enough? Or you're looking, like you might look for something completely different than what Lyndon's looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to know that, because I'm making Lyndon really happy. I'm feeding him the stuff he wants, but I'm not giving you what you want. So you're giving me batteries. I need to hear from individuals what they're looking for, so I can kind of meet the needs of different people. Does that make
So
sense?
can I make a suggestion then through the chair? We had Leah, you remember because you were on the board. We did have a meeting at the Wood Studio that was kind of a goal setting, and we got a couple pizzas and no beer, Lyndon. Sorry, but we had Rutland Cable come out, and we just kind of sat and had that conversation as a conversation. And if we want to have a meeting where we incorporate that feedback and the goal setting into just those 2 agenda items being on the agenda, we can sit at a round table like that and have that conversation that's more of a back and forth than it is a formal 12-month process.
I mean, I agree that would be a great exercise. And just on Ron's comments, I mean, I look at it as a way to help somebody grow. I try not to just point out problems without giving solutions, and this isn't just to criticize it, say like, this is what, you know, I perceive or the public may perceive, and I really see you should be doing more of this or looking at this in a different way. So I think it's a very constructive process, and you know I'm all about giving goals and directions and accountability in every level, from Ron right down to the clerical staff or the you know, the janitor, anybody, every position, everybody needs to know what's expected of them, and then they need to be accountable for it. So that's like huge on my mission, because I don't think there's enough of that. Because it's easy to say, this person doesn't do their job, let's get rid of them. Well, what did you tell them their job is? Did you tell them they're not doing it? Then if they don't do it, then get rid of them. So that's me, and that's big on me. And anything I try to do, I try to say, okay, this is a problem for me. This is what I see is what I want you to be doing. So that's my personal, but like I said, so I think there's some general things that we should discuss, and I think that having some kind of a meeting like that may be beneficial. And actually, Carol had asked me about that one time, because she's new at it, so she really would like to know where, you know, what we think of as a committee and where we're going and the expectations and stuff. So I think that kind of a sit down without a real formal agenda where we can only specifically talk about one little area, just talk about a board. Because to be honest, I solicited comments about the board, not, trying to find out what people think of us. And there's concerns out there about the way we conduct business. So I'd like to talk as a board and say, what we're not gonna all agree. On the finance committee, not everybody agreed, but we all came to consensus and we got along. So I think as a board, it'd be great for us to say, okay, this is all what we're kind of looking for, and how can we as a team work together and not send mixed messages to the public. So, like I said, I wasn't just looking to see what Ron needs to do or isn't doing or does great or something. I was looking at the board as because we manage Ron, so we need to make sure he represents what we say, and that's why what he said on the letter. But so I just think that would be a great exercise for us to be able to sit down as a group and talk about what we want from Ron and what we want as a board to try to go forward with the town. So I think that would be a huge asset, personally.
All right, so then I would just suggest through the chair that, I could send out some meeting times and dates that are proposed, if we want to do this in the next couple of weeks. If not, we can wait.
Just to be clear, Mitch, just because your understanding is that, I'm using up quite a bit of vacation time over the next 3 weeks or so. So I think we want
We're
to
gonna do it
focus
without
on
you,
those-
Ron.
What's that? You
We're
can do it
gonna
without me,
you.
yeah, I don't
Yeah,
need
you're not
it.
gonna be there.
But I think right after I get back, I'd be more than happy to
Okay.
we can really have a meeting on that respect.
Well, I think it'd
So
be
we'll-
beneficial for us as a board to know what we expect, and then even to sit down with Ron again and say, okay, what did we say we see you doing? And this as a board, we've kind of come to a consensus, and we all agreed that we want to see you do
Yeah.
certain things.
Right,
If I
understood.
could, just to make a comment, and I actually love this conversation. It's interesting, I look at like things that I've done, and I'm really happy with what I produced in the last 6 months. But as I looked at some of the reviews, some of the things that were really important to board members, and for example, being more part of the public, and I sat there and go, I'd love to be, but COVID has been hard, but that's a big part of who I am. So it was nice to hear those things that are important to the selectmen and select women, what they feel is important. And I know that you guys are, a number of members, are very big into being involved with the public and being out there and engaged, which I like. And sometimes, quite frankly, some people get mad because they do it too much. So I got to find that balance with you. But those are the things you really, like I could think I'm doing all this great paperwork and getting grants and all that stuff. And really what you really wanted me to do is to treat people so they really feel welcoming and kind. So that's the kind of stuff that I really love to hear. Those intangible stuff that I can't get from the document stuff I'm doing. So.
And through the chair, I had mentioned to you, Ron, that you just have an understanding of what we think your role is and what we think our role is, the difference between a town administrator, a town manager, and what we feel we should be more involved in or not be involved in at all. And I think it's really important that we're both on the same
Page, yeah.
page, that, what we expect, how much control you have and what we need to still be involved in. Because we are the elected officials, they chose us to lead, this town, so we need to be involved in certain ways and not just be, be eye candy and sitting up here on the.
Yeah, but you're awfully good eye candy. Yeah.
No, but seriously,
All right, well,
I think
now
that meeting will
this-
be
yeah.
beneficial.
Good
So.
discussion.
Okay.
I'm more than happy for
So
it.
I'll send out a scheduling email, and we'll take care of it, ignoring Lyndon's ridiculous eye candy comment. So, and then we'll get something on the books, and we'll just have,
We'll get that in the
we'll have
notes.
the agenda have that particular item on it, and we'll set it up in an informal manner, and we'll make cable aware of it, so they can make sure that they do all the recording requirements. And we'll be good to go.
Okay, so just another comment, because I want to make sure that the board understands what's going on here.
No, it's 8:30, no more
Well,
comments.
just my last comment about vacation. So I let the board know that Friday, where you have a day off, Juneteenth, 13th of day that's Friday. I'm leaving Friday, I'll be on vacation. I'll be gone the following week, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'll be back Thursday and Friday. And then I'm trying to use up that last week of vacation I asked the board for the week of 5th. So Nick is, I was gonna share that administrative duty with Nick and Rebecca, but Nick is fine keeping it, so Nick is gonna run the town when I'm gone. Nick and all of you have my phone number if there's something important. As much as I'd like to have vacation, at the same time, if you think it's critical, don't be afraid to give me a call to talk to me, okay? And Nick has that same response to me. If I have to engage, I'll engage, because I'm not gonna come back to a mess either. I wanna make sure there's not some big fireworks, so I will be available. And I think that this is a good time to take vacation, because it's a quiet time. July is usually quiet. And I mean, you know, we're gonna work on some other events to talk about economic development and some things that, to try to move some things forward.
Actually, if I get Mary on that call, she might be able to answer the 61A question too.
Okay.
That's not what her expertise on that is.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, can I have a
Alright, so-
motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call vote, Machete?
No, yeah, me, yes.